What's up, everybody? It's time for Thursday Night Throwdown. And tonight we're going to be keeping it kind of light tonight. We know that we've been talking about a lot of really heavy shit lately. And yeah, it definitely wears on us. I'm sure you as the audience. So since Halloween is not that far away, we figured we'd talk about some of our all-time favorite horror movies. Horrors. Starting with Frankenhooker. No, I'm kidding. Horror movies. And then we'll talk about the whole thing with physical media. Make sure that you guys hang on to that based off of what's coming out of Amazon Prime. And yeah, so, oh, look at that. We have a special guest. It's a gremlin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh
unfortunately, the gremlin's mic is muted, so we can't hear the gremlin.
Oh, stripe.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is that like one of the original toys from the 80s, man?
Nah, it's a newer one. Trick or Treat Studios or whatever did it. So just
that's pretty. It's pretty badass, man.
Gizmo goes with him. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool indeed.
Did Tom just?
We also will be having. Hopefully, Dimaj and I will be joining us. He'll be popping on probably in the next 15 minutes or so.
Cool.
So yeah. Yep. But before we get going, I know that we've had some super chats come in already, and let me go and find those real quick. All right, so we have a pooper sticker for 99 cents from According to Daddy Issues. If you're still out there, Christy, how are you doing? And then we have another super chat from Emotionally Unstable Amphibian for £5. Hypomatic as fuck again. No amount of can somebody help me out with that? Does a pan can keep me down.
Diazepam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Though I'd be better, Chuck. I would be better, Chuck, you a few quid before I spunk and couple of grand on Lord of the Rings swords.
There you go.
Oh, there you go, man.
Yeah.
And of course, it wouldn't be a stream without a very phallic unicorn sticker. This time coming from Diablo Dame. Excuse me, Diablo Dame for $1.49. And we have another very phallic unicorn for $1.49 coming from Toxic Man Flu. So, and this just in, we've had our third very phallic unicorn from Culture Casino for $1.49.
That's a herd. You have a herd.
That's a herd.
Phallic unicorn.
Would that be a murder?
That's crows. No, there's a murder of crows. It's a herd of horses.
A herd of horses? Yeah. I don't know. Whatever reason, the showing is the stream status is being poor. So hopefully everything's going all right. Anyway. So let's delay till Dimaj gets here.
All right.
We actually have an article that Tom sent my way, which is pretty cool. We'll go through that real quick and just talk about the stuff that they listed, which can kind of segue into what we're talking about. So we have from Nosferatu to Get Out, 100 Years of Horror. So the very first one that they list is Nosferatu from the 1920s. And I think it's kind of interesting because they go through and they talk about some of the reasons why it's kind of, I guess it makes those movies relevant for their time. So the silent German film, scripted by Henrik Galeen, I guess is how you pronounce that, I don't know, was a unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, and its timing was perfect. When the film debuted, the world was trying to recover from the 1-2 punch of World War I and the Spanish influenza, also known as the Spanish flu. In case you didn't know, I'm pretty sure you did. So it struck a nerve when audiences saw Count Orlok, the embodiment of death and destruction, stalking a plague-infested city. Stalking a plague-infested city. Yeah, there we go. Now that makes more sense to me. Up next is 1930s Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite movies. It's not my top 5, but it's
great sequel too.
Yeah. The great film starring Boris Karloff, who is absolutely freaking amazing. Varies a lot from Mary Shelley's 1888 novel, but retains a certain theme. The arrogance of man. Audiences in the 1930s were living in the Great Depression, blaming bankers and politicians for their difficulties. The villain of the 1930s fright film are arrogant people. I'm glad they actually said people and not men, because they like to point that out sometimes in the access media. Yeah. Who believe they can change the natural order of things. The victims are innocent bystanders. Mad scientists were central in The Invisible Man, Paramount, 1933, Paramount's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, 1931, and a trio from 1932, Shadu the Magician, and Dr. X, and the Island of Lost Souls. Like Frankenstein creatures, like the Frankenstein's creature and King Kong, many of the 1930 villains were sympathetic outcasts trying to cope with a heartless world that they didn't create.
That's true.
Very true. Let me go ahead and scroll up and get the super chat real quick. Corey B for $14.99. The Thing. Kurt Russell is a freaking sombrero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Freaking sombrero.
He's a freaking sombrero with a effing flamethrower versus alien shapeshifter. Discuss. Love all you guys. Since the BS pandemic started, you've kept me sane. You're welcome, Corey. And I know that not to get too spoilery with my top 5, but The Thing is in there.
I was going to say we may want to save that because that may come up later because this is kind of a primer, right?
Yeah, it is kind of a primer.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got through that. As a side note, many of the decade classics take place in Europe. Often this was because of the source novels. Yes, that is also very true. But there was something about Transylvania, Bavaria, and foggy London that inspired a sense of dread that a small town America didn't.
AKA the Gothic horror age.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That feeling was... What's that?
I was going to say also this writer is incorrect. London was not foggy. All of that was actually coal dust.
Smog.
Whatever. Yeah.
All right. I'm glad he's here. Means we can start talking about our movies in a second. How you doing,
eye in your eye? How you doing?
Hello there. How's everybody doing?
I am doing
good.
Pretty damn good for Thursday.
I wish I could say that. I freaking I had to scratch the other day because my back was just freaking blown out. I'm getting old, bro. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
That crap started to catch up on me.
Being it that you're not that far behind me.
It's all that motorcycle riding that you do, man. That's a young man's game. You gotta get on something else.
Well, what's crazy? I'm actually late to the game. I had my license for the bike almost like. I'm going to say my little cousin's 18, so I'm probably about 20 years I had my motorcycle license, but I had my bike for about 8 years because I didn't have the money to get a bike. So I used to let me ride your bike, and then like one of my buddies or my cousin let me ride around the neighborhood or whatever. But it's not like owning your own thing where you can literally just say F it, I'm going to go purposely get lost. Like I've purposely done that a few times and just freaking went somewhere and just made a right turn instead of a left turn and just kept going, and just see where the ride takes me. That's fun, man. You can't beat that.
And we have another special guest here. Tom,
welcome,
like
filmmaker. Welcome, filmmaker Tom Conkle. How you doing?
Hello there.
How are you? Thanks for letting me come in here and and be ambushed. I have no idea what we're talking about, but I'm game for anything.
Don't feel bad, bro. I came straight from work. I literally just I came in here and just freaking took off my work clothes and got on screen.
Well, since it's the week of Halloween, I figured we're talking about our top 5 favorite horror movies.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I see you're talking about, is that Jacques Tournier's Cat People?
Yeah, this is actually
there,
a Variety article that talks about the last 100 years of horror movies. So we're just kind of running through it real quick. I was kind of killing some time to before everybody, since everyone wasn't here yet. So we can start talking about our favorite movies at this point. So I'll just kind of run through this real quick. So the next one they have for the 1940s, and what Variety did is they're picking a single movie to kind of represent that decade. So they have 1940s represented by the Cat People, Godzilla for the 1950s, which would make sense because of...
I would have picked Invasion of the Body Snatchers for that one.
Yeah,
that'd have been a better one, yeah.
Rosemary's Baby for the 1960s.
I would have picked... Well,
I don't like that movie.
I'd have put Psycho.
Yeah.
Psycho. I'm with you on Psycho.
And 1970s Halloween.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Halloween. Yeah. A lot of good horror movies in the 70s.
1980s, The Fly. I don't know about The Fly.
The Fly over The Thing?
Fly felt more like a sci-fi movie.
That's where The Thing probably belongs. I agree.
The Thing belongs on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's if you're going to pick anything, just anything out of the 80s, definitely.
I agree with you, Tom.
1990s, I do agree with Scream.
Well, yeah, you can't really avoid that. But you see, here's another problem with the 80s is you've got things like, honestly, I think a better representation might be Nightmare on Elm Street, but I might be biased too. But anyway.
No, I would buy that. Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street is better. I like that.
Let's face it, the 70s, The Exorcist too. You got to think about that.
So
yeah.
I'm not even going to say anything.
Yeah.
The Exorcist. And that movie still creeps me out.
Yeah, it creeps everybody out. We're burning down people's lists already, but I know we'll get to them. So,
2000s Cario. I guess it translates to Pulse. I've never heard of this movie.
How do we not have Carrie in there though?
Caro.
That's a good point.
How's Carrie not there?
Carrie's not in there.
Well, they're picking a single movie per decade, and then they have for 2010 they have Get Out.
Get Out.
And quite frankly, I can't remember any other horror movies that came out in the 2010s. So
that one
had made
the biggest mark.
Wasn't Us supposed to be a scary movie too? But I don't know. I never saw that one either.
I haven't seen either one. I got the gist of Get Out, and I just never bothered seeing the other ones. So anyway, I guess let's go around the table. Let's start with our two special guests. Tom, would you like to go and tell us what is your number 5 for your favorite horror movie?
Oh my God!
That was a list of 5. Oof.
We got to do 5.
Dude, I came up with.
Do you need a minute or two to kind of think about it, or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Because I kind of brought Tom in at the last minute here, so he's completely.
But you know what? I got to tell you, my number 5 would probably be. I'm going to say Alien. Alien.
Good pick. Nice.
Very good pick.
I think it's a genre bender, but I remember the first time I saw it, and it had stuff in it that I had never seen before, and it mixed science fiction and horror in a way, and that H.R. Giger design, that chest bursting scene, and just that scene where the tail goes up between her legs and is about to attack her. There's some pretty good moments in that. I would say Alien's my number 5.
Okay. Let's go to the other Tom real quick. While Demonja is thinking.
My number 5 is the 1960 film Psycho.
Nice.
Classic film, of course. Hitchcock. Got to have Hitchcock at some point pop up, and if you have to pick his best, it's got to be Psycho for its simplicity. It's straightforward, just balls to the wall. Relentlessness at that time, and it was the prototype for everything we were going to get for the next 30 years, basically.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It was, and I'm going to jump in here and say, Tom, that was also my number 5.
Okay,
I mean, and
great minds think alike.
And Hitchcock's use of he didn't have to do it in an overt way. The Janet Leigh scene still is one of those things that you can still see in your mind's eye. The cinematography, that particular shot, Still blows my mind every time. So there you are.
Well, and most people don't realize that Psycho sets up every single rule for the slasher films.
That's true.
First of all, you don't have premarital or out of marriage sex, which the main actress does. Then she steals something, so she commits a crime, and then she's alone, which is also the cop's mistake when he goes up to talk to mother. I mean, all the horror elements are right there. But anyway, you were going to say something, Tom.
Well, I was just going to say the other thing that was daring is that was the first time you had a star and you out and out killed them in the middle of a movie, which is you talk about just like defining a way of doing things. It's like, you don't do that. You don't bring in the star and you're like, starring so-and-so. They're dead.
Right. And it also introduces the killer with either a psychological disorder or a victim of circumstance, in this case, both.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a rush to that where you're like, wait a minute, you can do that? Yeah, okay, I like that. So yes, I would have to agree with you on Psycho. That's a great pick.
And apparently, NP is telling me that that one movie was pronounced Cairo, like Cairo, Egypt.
Cairo. There's a lot of Korean horror. I mean, that is the horror as a genre. There is huge. I'm just not familiar with it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure there's some good stuff, but I'm just not familiar with it.
I've seen like a few things here and there, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
All right, Damaj and I, what do you got?
All right, so I threw something together. It's kind of hard for me because I was just trying to figure out what. So I'm going to put number 5 is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Ooh,
okay. Nice. So what does that resonate with you?
That was also on my list. Go ahead.
So what with me? A lot of these things, I was like, what it was, how I'm judging these, and how scared I was as a kid, because some of these I didn't even finish watching. That's how I rated them, because as a kid they scared the crap out of me. Yeah, so Freddy Krueger was always very scary to me. So that's why I'm just, because right now to me, when I think about horror movies now, a lot of horror movies, like modern horror movies now, is all about jump scares and gore, and that really doesn't do anything for me.
I'm like, kind of in the same boat, man.
What scares me more is like darkness, like the dark, like, and I don't mean about like just being dark, edgy. I'm saying like just things that you would almost along the lines of the jump scare, but without really just being the jump scare. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it. So that's why I gave it that. So.
Well, there's some movies that no matter how many times you've watched it, and Alien's a really good example of that. Yeah, those jump scares will always get you. But there's other ones where it's like, you've seen it once, you've seen it a million times. But some of them just resonate more than others.
Well, it was number 2 on my list.
Your Alien was?
Or no, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, Nightmare for me, because it's psychological. There's something about dreams and sleep in general that just really freaks you out, because dreams are the one place, at least psychologically and biologically, that's where anything can happen. So the idea of something that manipulates your dream, it resonates as kind of like, wait, can this really happen? And dreams have a disturbing logic, and it's really hard to get the logic of a dream in a movie. So when that movie caught the illogic of dreams and how it can be disturbing, I think that's what tapped in a deep vein for people, is that your dreams don't make sense, but they're terrifying, and that movie really captured what it would be like to be in a dream.
Well, Nightmare on Elm Street for me, I mean, Freddy's my boy. Like if I got to pick somebody, I mean,
it's a great character.
He is the most vile creature on the face of the earth, but he's also has the charm of somebody like a game show host.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, out of all the slasher films coming from the 80s, he's the one that has the most personality. I mean, Jason really didn't develop a personality too much later in his movies. And you can say the same thing about Michael Myers as well. Yeah.
No, and then like Wes Craven just kind of had this idea and he nursed it. And again, I'm probably a little biased on this, but for many, many, many reasons I don't need to get into. But again, like Nightmare on Elm Street for me is just a great, simple idea for a horror film. It's like, what if you die in your dream? But that means you die for real. Yeah. Like just that simple idea and it is loosely based on a real story about this kid who was in, I think it was a Korean camp or something like that with his folks. I can't remember, or Cambodian maybe. I apologize for getting it wrong, but he was in some camp during one of the wars, and they moved to America as refugees, and he had a hard time sleeping, and his parents discovered he was hiding like a coffee pot under his bed and stay awake pills, and they had him therapy and all this stuff.
Wow.
And he kept saying, if I fall asleep, I'm gonna die. If I die in my sleep, I'm gonna die. And one night he fell asleep peacefully. They took him upstairs because they were watching a movie, and somewhere in the middle of the night, he woke up screaming bloody murder. And by the time his parents got in there, he was stone cold dead.
Wow.
So like that's what Wes Craven based the whole idea on, between that and this kid who used to pick on him in school named Freddie. And the other one was one night he was his parents and his brothers and sisters lived in an apartment building. I think it was in New York. And he looked out his window one night, and there was this weird guy with a trench coat and a hat, same exact fedora pretty much as what Freddie has.
Oh wow.
And looking right at him. And he's like this, he's just like, hey, the guy looked right at me. And I mean, we're way up in this thing, and I knew it. He could just look right at me, and it scared the living shit out of me. Wow. And I went and hid, and I went to get my brother or something like that. He said, and when he got back, he was gone. But then we saw him walking into the door or something like that. So it scared him out even more.
Wow.
Freaked him out even more. So that just stayed with him. So all these things kind of mixed together with this idea of what is the most vile creature on the face of the earth. And that would, of course, be a child, assaulter and killer. And not only that, what if they could get at you in your most vulnerable of ways? Yes.
Yeah. That Wes Craven was the first person I ever interned for. I ever worked for.
Oh wow.
When I moved to LA. Wow. It was the movie Shocker with Mitch Pileggi.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And one night we were shooting a scene in a bar, and there was a long setup. You know how it is between setups on stuff. So I sit down, and I'm, been hustling all day. And so Wes Craven comes over, and he sits down next to me, and he's tired too. And we're just sitting there. So we just start talking. I find out he's like an English professor, and I had minored in English in school.
That's because
we started talking about it, and we got into this super deep conversation about dreams and dream time. And I guess Nathaniel Hawthorne, he was into him, and Nathaniel Hawthorne was trying to get dream logic. So we started talking about all this stuff, and his approach to it was very cerebral. It was very like, how do I tap into that deep vein in people's fears? And I learned so much just watching him work, because he would manipulate the actors and the camera in this amazing way. And it was like a masterclass just watching him direct and how he would manipulate. He knew where the scares were coming, and he would play with even the actors where they would be like, and jump and do this thing, because he would change their timing for even like their cues in scenes. And I loved watching him just create this dreamlike atmosphere on the set. Super cool guy to meet. And at the time I was like, I can't believe I'm sitting here like talking about horror with Wes Craven.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked him to come in.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've been really lucky to work with some great people in horror, like Rob Bottin. I got to hang with him. I used to play poker and do all kinds of stuff with all these guys, and you would learn so much about it.
Rob, of course, worked on like The Thing and RoboCop and stuff. And
he said he slept on the floor. He actually didn't have a place to live, so he'd just fall asleep on the floor on the set of The Thing, and then just wake up and keep working on it. And that was his deal.
Wow. I love that movie. I love that movie so much. Nightmare on Elm Street. In fact, that's my number 2. I think Tom is cheating off of my list tonight. But,
I think so. So far, our list is exact.
I know. I'm terrified of what's going to happen at our big movie stream on Saturday. But anyway, Nightmare on Elm Street was so important to me as a youngster that my very first haunt that I ran at age 16 was based on Nightmare on Elm Street. I actually played Freddy Krueger.
Nice.
I patterned the entire haunt was like, what a good haunt's always tight. You bring people into a real tight space and you give them almost no escape room. And that was one of the funnest experiences of my life, to try to actually be Freddy. But it's just because you could mess with people's minds. I mean, we used a strobe effect and a non-motion circumstance, like you were walking into the dream down an alleyway. If you remember some of the scenes in those films, it's just, but those concepts stuck with me on how to do a good haunt, and how to do a good story, and how And Tom Conkle's right. I mean, my God, I mean, just a master of putting just maximizing the situation to create the biggest or best reveal. That's key. That's why, again, that film was so amazing. So yeah, that was my number 2 as well. So I'm going to start hiding my list from.
You guys are sharing a Google Doc, right?
Yeah.
No.
Do you guys remember the TV show that was based off of that? It was Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Nightmares. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That I really
surprised you didn't work on that, Tom.
When was that, in the late 80s?
Late 80s.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't out here in LA until early 90s, so I didn't work on
it might have been after your time, because I think it only lasted for 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think it was 2 seasons. I remember as a kid. Or
before your time, I mean.
Yep. Yeah, it was before my time. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's the other one, which was Friday the 13th, the TV series, which has nothing to do with Friday the 13th.
It was more like prototype X-Files, because it was about a curio shop, that had a bunch of cursed objects in it, and each show they would explore a cursed object.
Different cursed objects. You're right. It was kind of like the proto X-Files. It wasn't quite X-Files yet, but yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. I just remember it had like a hot redhead and her cousin, I think.
It was a hot redhead, and I'm going to have to go on IMDb, but I think you're right. It might be her cousin.
Yeah, it was like either her cousin or her brother. I want to say it was her cousin.
Well, it started off with, I can't think of the guy's name, but he ended up being in Jason Goes to Hell as a completely different character. And he quit, I think, during the last season. So then like a completely other guy come in, and I can't remember who the other actor is either offhand, but yeah, it was like the show didn't last long. And Freddy's Nightmares was funny because when they shot it, they knew it was going to be in syndication. They expected people to show this shit at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, after the news and shit.
Right.
They ended up premiering the shit at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon in most markets. So you got this show that was shot because they told them, they're like, look, here we got like, a couple $1 million to shoot this show. It's all prepaid for. Just go make a bunch of shows. They filmed all the Freddy wraparounds, and you had guys like, there's so many horror guys who filmed on that show, and I'm trying to think of all their names, but like many guys who went on to do all kinds of horror stuff or were already in horror. They shot a buttload of episodes, and they shot them like Tales from the Crypt, all gory and
just
nudity and shit. And they cut them down for television. But then it was on at like 6 o'clock at night when kids are watching dinner and shit with their parents, and you got people's heads getting cut off and shit.
I don't remember it. I always remember watching it like really late at night because like I was living in Denver at the time, and it's like I don't remember when it aired. Maybe it was like Friday or Saturday night. And, I'd stay up pretty late watching that and Freddy's Nightmares.
It wasn't always, it was just dependent on your market. But some people they just put it on because it's a syndicated show. They didn't stop to think about what it was.
Yeah. I think at that point,
it 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock is hilarious to have that on.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
It's like, hey, it's the after school special.
All right. I want to get some super chats real quick and then I'll give you my top 5. So we have a super sticker from Crazy Cat Guy for $3. It says, how's it going? And then from Corey B for $9.99, Hitchcock's The Birds versus Psycho. I still think the slow burn with the birds is the playground, and then attacking the house is better shower stabby red swirl.
It's like the description of the storyboards right there. Better stabby red swirl. There you go.
Yeah,
the birds got under a lot of people's skin. I remember growing up where just people were freaked out by birds. Just the idea of them going wild like that, and the way he kind of staged it. It was, it was almost like horror as disaster film.
Yeah. It's like what happens when nature tries to kill you.
Yes. Yeah, good point.
Well, I was just going to say, I actually didn't put it on my list because I think Psycho ages better. Yeah, I don't think Birds is aged as well. I love the birds though.
Well, the effects is probably the reason why, because the birds.
That's the main thing is the effects.
As hell,
but I also have another Man versus Nature movie on my list already. So
nice. Right.
But save it. Don't spoil it yet. Crazy Cat Guy for another $10. I'm not a fan of slasher and jump scare flicks. I prefer Eldritch and psychological horror. I do as well. Planning an Eldritch triple feature this Halloween. The Lighthouse, Event Horizon, and In the Mouth of Madness.
Mouth of Madness.
Nice.
Yep. I remember that. I was so happy when that movie came out because I'm a big fan of Cthulhu, the Cthulhu mythos, and the fact that this is the first time we've seen anything Lovecraftian on screen was amazing. Unfortunately, it's all right, but it's got a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 5 is a bit controversial because a lot of people don't think this movie is a horror film, but it absolutely is. It's 1984's The Terminator. And if you look at the movie, you can see that it gets classified as a science fiction thriller, but it has a lot of horror tropes in it.
It's basically Halloween.
It really is. You have the movie maniac or movie monster, which is the Terminator, which is your unstoppable murder machine, much like Freddy, Jason, and the one from Halloween, which I'm blanking on.
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers, thank you. And you also have the final girl, which is Sarah Connor. So yeah, it's
That's a
really
good call.
interesting. Yeah,
no, that's a good call. The Terminator probably resonated with people because underneath that new kind of presentation of it, you're right. It had the tropes. It had the bones of a slasher film, and you're right. It was a really well made slasher film.
Yeah.
Just like Aliens, it is. It really, at its core, is basically Halloween.
It's a haunted house film, Alien. Yeah. That's a good point.
That's a good one. I like that one.
I
love Terminator. Like to me, I think they should just stop with those two.
Oh God, yes.
1 and 2 are that's it. It told the story.
I always jokingly say the 1 and 2 are the trilogy.
Yeah,
that's the trilogy.
Pretty much.
It's one of those movies they could have just stopped with the first one. It really didn't need to have any sequels.
Well, and people get pissed at me.
I appreciate Terminator 2, but it's like I don't view it as being necessary.
Well, people get pissed at me when I point out that Terminator 2 is basically a remake of Terminator 1, word for word, beat for beat, scene for scene.
Absolutely.
I'm like, no, watch it.
It absolutely is.
It absolutely is. It's just that Sarah and Schwarzenegger have all of Reese's lines. Right. And of course, the new Terminator takes the Terminator's lines, and John has all of Sarah's lines. It's the exact same fucking movie.
It really is.
That movie with money. Yeah.
No,
that's a good point.
I definitely enjoy it for what it's worth, but it's not on my list anywhere as being a favorite film of mine. But Terminator. It's one of those movies that I don't remember where I watched it at. I know I was, I think I saw it in '85, and it was already on VHS, and my mom was out visiting somebody, and they're like, "Hey, watch this movie." I'm like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Oh, Terminator! You guys have Terminator." It's like I remember watching the trailer on TV. It's like I want to see that, and I was just completely blown away by it.
Yeah, I remember.
That's when my parents wouldn't let me see it. Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I remember seeing it. I'm a little bit older than you guys are, but I remember my buddy and I went to go see it, and of course we didn't mention what the rating was to my parents. We went and saw it, and we were blown away by, because I hadn't seen a lot of low budget movies, like the kind of really good B movies that were happening in the 80s, and we kind of stumbled out of it, and we were both in the daze because we weren't expecting anything. We thought it would be schlocky or not good, and it was actually really good, and we kind of stumbled around, and I remember just going, what the heck? What did we just watch? Like, it didn't have, big stars. It didn't have this kind of thing, but it had that kind of kinetic energy. It had stuff that you really hadn't seen before like that. And I felt changed when I came out of the movie. I was like, wow, you can do that. It was one of those moments where the light bulb went in my head, and it's just the power of movies. Yeah.
And then that movie launched, Cameron's career, because before that he did Piranhas 2.
Yeah. And got fired.
Yeah,
he got fired. Yeah.
Oh, that I didn't know. But yes,
he got fired in the middle of filming. A buddy of mine was on the first AD or something on that, and he was really pushing it and pushing for the acting. And they're like, "You got to stop. Like, you got to go. We don't need more than one take." And you're talking to James Cameron, so of course he's like, "That's it. I'm out." And he walked.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's a good pick for a horror film. I would not have thought of that. I'll bet not many lists have that, but you're absolutely right.
Wow. Okay, let's go with number 4, and we will start with you, Culture Casino.
Number 4. Oh, this one's easy. Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. 1 or 2?
Evil Dead 2, actually. I'm sorry, Evil Dead.
Oh yeah.
I thought you were gonna say something like Showgirls.
You've been watching
horror
these
movie.
That's
watching.
actually from Scream. Okay, that's what you said in there.
Yeah, that's what I finished off with.
What's your
Little
favorite
does he
scary
know.
movie? Showgirls.
Sam Raimi did such a good job directing this one,
Yes.
and it has one of my favorite actors of all time in Bruce Campbell. I couldn't get enough of this movie from the first one's good, but this one was great, and I just every single element of this just you can't do anything but fall in love with it and occasionally laugh at the same time, and it made you feel it's a feel good horror movie. Does that make sense? I know that sounds dumb.
No,
It's
one of those movies that it's definitely like a horror comedy movie because
It's slapstick horror.
Bruce,
slapstick
I know
horror. That's
exactly.
what it is.
Thank you. That's what it is. Yeah, and you feel really good about it. There's so much kooky Madookie stuff going on in it, and it just you just enjoy it. And you when you leave your seat or the couch, or if you happen to see it in the theater, when you leave, I know I've got it in the other room.
I've got every iteration
I've got
of
the
that
4K
movie.
version too.
Man.
I just have that one sitting there.
I just love it, and I can't say no good things about it. And so for number 4, I thought that was the best pick, and I was reading through my microphone, but yeah, Evil Dead 2, the best. Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, it's amazing. Let me get these super chats real quick because this is something that's going to cost some debate, which I think is good. Toxic Man Flu for $5. My first marriage, directed by Toxic Man Flu, scared me out of my spouse. Oh, dude, that's
I like that term,
hilarious.
scaring you half out of your stuff.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay,
Being scared
now
half out
this
of your
one
stuff.
from Corey B for $4.99. Big Trouble in Little China is a horror movie. Changed my mind. I would say it's an urban fantasy movie.
Yeah, it uses a lot of Asian cinema tropes. It is sort of an urban fantasy. I'm not sure about the horror.
Yeah,
element.
it's a Western action film meets an Eastern action film.
Yeah,
Basically. And
yeah, you're right.
With your main character not being the antagonist or protagonist, he's the sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's kind
Yeah,
of
it's
the
a really weird
sidekick.
thing.
Almost a Western, literally like a John Wayne type character.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's literally a Western meets like Kurosawa films.
I kind of
Western
feel like
It's like Chinese Ghost Story. Yeah,
Western meets urban fantasy.
yeah.
Asian urban.
But I can see some.
Chinese
I
urban
can see
fantasy.
some horror. I can see some horror elements in there.
No,
I mean,
it definitely has it.
Yeah.
I mean, but that kind of plays into I think the urban fantasy
with
aspect of it.
Lopan, with Lopan doing the Lopan thing. Yeah,
I feel like Bram Stoker stole a lot. I will say this because they were just talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula. I will say that I feel like Francis Ford Coppola, not Bram Stoker. Francis Ford Coppola stole a lot from that for Bram Stoker's Dracula, from the whole Lopan thing.
Yeah, you might be right.
I feel like he did, especially with the growing young thing. And I mean, I know that's kind of part of the Dracula, but the whole thing with Dracula is he's never a good looking guy. Like if you read the book, he always is basically described as repugnant and repulsive.
Yeah, he has a long face. Like I just did a radio adaptation for Halloween. I'm actually going to have it come out tomorrow of Dracula. And I was interested to say the first description, they said like his mouth was cruel under his mustache. And you're like, you don't think of Dracula and his mustache and his sort of cruel face or whatever. But the original Bram Stoker's description of it is very different than he was portrayed in cinema.
Yeah.
So yeah, good point. There is I would say Coppola lifted from many sources to kind of create.
But like just just kind of the style of Lopan.
You're right.
I see Lopan and you put that next to his Dracula. Oh yeah.
And I always thought of Dracula with a mustache for whatever reason. Because it kind of struck me as like Gomez from Addams Family. It's kind of like a vampiric to me, like that representation in that. And I know that's dumb TV.
If he had a long face, maybe, but like he's always been portrayed with a round face, though. Yeah. Even though Morticia has always been a vamp type.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I just that's for whatever reason that's what always struck me of that TV show. So Raul Julia's performance was better, but anyway.
All right, I'm being slightly challenged here by Preserve Our Culture. If you actually go and Google, horror tropes, you could. There's actually more that I just don't remember off the top.
Well,
of my head.
and here's actually an argument for that. He got sued by a writer for a horror story for what show was it? The Outer Limits.
Outer Limits. I don't know the guy's name, but there's
like Demon with the Glass Hand,
and for the Soldier.
Yeah, was
it for both those?
Harlan Ellison?
Yeah, Harlan Ellison.
Harlan Ellison. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. So basically, I would argue it's very horror based on, and not only that, it is basically like Alien in that sense. It's let's do Halloween, but we'll do it in space. And this one was let's do Alien, but we'll do it, or let's do Halloween, but we'll do it with a robot.
Yeah, I would buy that. Well, that's the thing. I mean, all creativity is just hiding your sources.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Friday the 13th is another one that may come up, so I don't want to get into it too much, but that's another one that's the same tropes, but that even takes Psycho and just flips it around.
You're right, Tom. Yeah, it does.
All right, Demonte, do you have one for number 4?
While y'all guys were talking, I was just coming up with other movies in my head that actually scared the crap out of me more. So I actually went with this one because I remember the first time I saw it, I watched it at night by myself, and immediately after watching this movie, I literally had to put it on Cartoon Network because it scared the crap out of me. I need to see some cartoons, damn it. But I'm gonna say The Ring.
Oh,
The Ring. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And one of the things that scared the crap out of me about that was like the first, like it started out with the very first person that got executed was the girl in the room, and when they found her in the closet, I'm like that scene right there.
That was a good jump scare.
Yeah, that was like, because it wasn't even like it was like it was just like, holy smokes, what the hell did she do to her? You know what I'm saying? Uh-huh. So I went with The Ring. I mean, actually when we done this, I actually do got a honorable mention on this too. So I'll do that once you get down to all the 5. So yeah, The Ring is my number 4.
Okay, Tom.
Me, Tom, or you, Tom?
Yeah, call me Thomas. That way we can keep it
separate.
Yeah, there you go.
Tom, not Thomas.
Well, because Evil Dead 2 was probably going to be mine, I want to pick something that's in a similar vein that was almost my number 4, and now it is my number 4, An American Werewolf in London. I think the transformation scene in that, the weird mix of comedy, that transformation scene was masterful. I mean, think about it. It's not CG. It was done there. It was one of the most kind of visceral, disturbing things that I had seen in the cinema, and you felt like you were witnessing it really happening. Like you didn't feel, that it was all done in post and all this kind of thing. You were like, wow, they're just like, they're bending his legs and they're changing him. And it was
painful too. It was painful to watch, and the agony on his face.
And it walked what I call like the bloody tightrope, in that it was funny. And it could be really, masterfully funny, and then it would be super dark. Mm-hmm. We would go really dark, and you would be like, "Wow!" And then just for the transformation, that scene alone, I think that was just a landmark film as far as mixing comedy and horror. But just, you've always seen men turn into monsters, but for me, that was the first time where I felt it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and to speak to that film's legacy, or however you want to put it, or strength, Rob on our channel hates horror films, but he likes American Werewolf in London. And I think it speaks to like John Landis's, how he knew, like, okay, he mastered comedy, and he's like, I can scare the fuck out of people. And the best part is if I make them laugh in between, it'll make the scares even worse, and it'll make the darkness of this film come out even more. Because I mean, this is a very dark fucking story if you really get into it. It's a very good story, and it has very little to do with werewolves, as far as like, the actual werewolf we only see like twice, I think, or 3 times at the most. But again, between that transformation and the couple times we see it, it's horrific. But like the big thing is like his buddy deteriorating,
friendships and losing connections. It's about it's all that kind of weirdness. They tapped into something with that movie. I think it works.
And 2, back to the transformation scene, and to me that is like probably peak mastercraft of special effects, because it's all done practically. It's not using any CG, and it's something that we don't see anymore in films. Is everything has to be CG now because it's so much easier. And I've gotten to the point where I really miss that artistry within the film.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I used to watch horror films. Yeah.
It's like you feel it's a sculptor's hand. I mean, he's creating human anatomy. He's manipulating it. They're creating a tactile, you can feel the hairs coming up. You can see the flesh stretching. You know that craftsmen had to sit there and think about our body and think about animals and combine them. And we're watching this thing get created right in front of our eyes. And there was no intervention later. It was like, look, this needs to work while we're filming.
Yeah. And that was done in 81 too.
81. Yeah.
I was going to say, this leads into the thing. Yeah. Which I think really is the peak of the effects that started here, but go ahead.
Those appliances that were constructed are master's work. I mean, Tom is not wrong. You're talking about craftsman, somebody who really understood what they were trying to convey in scenes where you could only cut away briefly, through the jerky motions and stuff like that. Everything had to be exactly right. And they mimicked that or used this similar kinds of concepts when they did Michael Jackson's Thriller to get the same kind of appliances.
That was a great video.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Right.
Well, Rick Baker was started. This movie led to Thriller, in many ways.
And he was a master sculptor.
These movies,
he knew all of it.
These movies made like rock stars out of these effects guys like Rob Baker and Rob Bottin, who we brought up earlier, and Stan Winston and Tom Savini, especially, was like a fucking rock star. I mean, that motherfucker was on Letterman all the time.
And I love that he was. I love that it made rock stars into some of the guys that were behind the sines. He would come in there and show Letterman all his things, and you're like, "Yeah, that's some alien arm or whatever." And Letterman be like, "That's disgusting." Wait, I'm gonna make it bleed.
All right, Thomas, what's your number 4?
Oh, my number 4? Oh, gosh. Let's see here. My number 4 is the 1973 horror classic, sometimes considered the scariest film of all time on many, many lists. The William Friedkin classic, William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. Hands down, one of the greatest films of all time, and one of the greatest horror films of all time. And they'll never make this movie again. They'll never be able to capture this. It was a lightning in a bottle. And if it wasn't for somebody like Linda Blair, who had her shit together at that young of an age, it could have scarred somebody even more horribly for life. Yeah. And that's one other reason why they'll never make this movie again, at least like this. But yeah, it was tour de force. That's the word for it.
Yeah, that's on my top 5. One thing, I think The Exorcist taps into something that's deep and psychological. Either you're a parent or a child, but watching your child be helplessly ill is a real thing. So the demon possession, I remember that scene where they're doing the body scan and they're doing they make it into a medical procedure where the welts are coming up on her skin and the parents feel helpless to do anything for their child. I think that tapped into a deep vein with everybody. And I knew that movie was going to be great because I remember going to a friend's house and The Exorcist was playing in another room. They were playing it on DVD or something like that. And I walked in and just the sound of it, just the sound of her talking, the sound of the priest talking to him kept me up all night because I was in an unfamiliar place. And I was like, wow, I am just freaked out by this movie. Just hearing it in the other room recalled everything in the movie in my head. How many movies the audio can make you feel the whole movie? I mean, it's an amazing.
Well, it would have been worse if you walked in and it was that one part when the Exorcist walks in and it's like, Mary!
Yeah. There's nothing worse than being in a dark, unfamiliar house and you hear the Exorcist playing in the other room. You're like, okay, I'm not going to be sleeping.
The other thing, too, is like audio is so key to these kinds of movies. I mean, it sets the mood and the tone and everything. So, I mean, that's something you have to get right.
Yes, the audio is everything. I think when you're doing horror, you lavish as much attention because the ear is much deeper sometimes than the eye. You know, that's one of the reasons.
Oh, the sound design.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
God.
And the sound design of a horror movie is everything. What you choose to take out is as important as what you put in.
Yeah, because there's moments of just pure silence that are just disrupted
Silence,
by the loudest noises ever. And then it's not just this jump scare aspect of it, it's the way Friedkin manipulated the audience with just every element he had in his trick book. You know,
when you're making a horror movie, you're right. You are waging psychological warfare on the audience. That is making
And the reason that the sounds are so amazing is the audio engineers are mixing in things that make you uncomfortable, like bees buzzing, the sounds of a bow on a string on a violin that squeaks, and they do it really fast. And there's all these crazy sounds that your brain you don't like. It's like the nails on the chalkboard. You are supposed to be off balance. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. That's the getting in their brain part that Tom's 100% right again. Of course, the guy's been in the industry forever, but you know, it's just that's where it comes from, man. It's
and wasn't like one of the times they took like a handsaw and put it up against like a violin or something like that, and some other weird shit they did just to make the sound.
Well, and think about it. They always pick an out of tune piano and they play the upper registry of the notes and the high end key. But it's that unbalanced thing, and again, I mean, that's and they'll hide it. They'll bury it underneath something else or inside of another sound, and that's where that unease is just amplified to the hill. And again, I mean, even in good haunts, if you go into a good haunt, they will use balance tables. So that when you walk in, there's a table. It's actually on a bunch of springs, but you don't know it. It's underneath the floor. And you walk in there, and there's 5 or 6 of you, and just somebody shifting their weight brings everybody to a level of unease. But these guys are doing it with sound. They're doing it with visual effects. These are masters. This is the thing that I love. You get into this kind of stuff. It's like, how do I make you feel this in this environment? And I'm sorry, my audio is terrible.
It's all right.
Well, it was more like a connection.
I think you're right. It's the psych warfare that you're waging, and you're right. There are frequencies that all of us get put at just sort of an unease just by hearing that frequency, whether it's a low tone or a high tone that you almost don't notice. And then the ears are so much more deep than the eye that you're absorbing information unconsciously. And it's important, you know, we're talking about our favorite horror movies, but the sound of our favorite horror movies is everything. It's one of the reasons we love them. And if you don't believe it, play the transformation scene from American Werewolf in London without the sound, and you'll realize how much you're incorporating the sound into the.
Well, what's funny is you mentioned that one because Landis went against the form with that one.
Yep.
Normally, you would have like some horrific music. He has like, I think, is it Blue Moon or something like that playing against that?
And it works beautifully. It works. The irony of that makes you buy that thing completely.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, my number 4 is 1990s Jacob's Ladder.
Ooh,
and
interesting. Yeah,
that for me it was one of those movies when I first saw it, I was like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" And it took me like 2 or 3 viewings to fully get what the story was about. And I am a sucker for a good ghost movie, and this movie isn't really a ghost story, but it's about what is transpiring in somebody's mind as they're dying. And that's the reason why I like it so much, because first it fucked with my head, and 2, you know, it really made me think about what was going on and analyze everything. And I was, you know, I wouldn't say pretty young, but I was a teenager when this movie came out. And I had to sit through it several times just to kind of decode what was going on. I'm like, okay, it reminds me of this one short story I read because I was in high school, and Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. You know, it's the last moments that is running through his brain before he dies.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers for a movie that is what, 30 years old.
No, I know.
Point.
Oh,
we lost Tom.
Oh no, we lost Tom.
Oh shit. Hopefully it was an accident.
He's like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. You guys talk about this movie.
Yeah.
This is one of the few movies I could stand Tim Robbins in. So there you go.
Now, wasn't there like a director's cut down the road that was actually that actually improved on the film? I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. I've only saw the theatrical release.
Yeah, and I only see the theatrical release, and they just made this film, I think, a year ago, 2 years ago.
Jacob's Ladder?
Jacob's Ladder?
I think so. Maybe I could be wrong. I remember a title of a movie like that.
No, there he's
Or a
back.
remake? Maybe.
Oh no, it looks like he.
Oh, there you go. There he is.
No, I'm back. Yeah, look, my internet crapped out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right.
We're all speculating. Oh, he's offended by number 4 pick. No,
He's like, that ain't a fucking horror movie. I'm out of here.
How dare you mention that film?
So yeah, no, they may have redid it, but it's news to me if they did, because the original one came out, what, 88, 89?
90.
90?
It was 90.
Yeah. Good film, though.
Yeah. All right. Culture Casino, we will kick you off with number 3.
Number 3. Gosh, I'm running out of them fast. Number 3 is the 1975, nobody's going to agree with me, horror film, Jaws.
Oh, that was my number 1. What do you mean
Jaws
nobody's
is
going
on
to
my
agree
list.
with you?
Stop spoiling it, Tom. Or Tom.
How could I not? How could I not? It's my number 1.
Now, if you ever watch the movie stream over on Christie's channel, Tom and I do this to each other all the time. We just
This
tear each
proves that
other's
we don't have the
lists
same
apart.
list.
No. I love this film. I was quite young at this point when this film was released, and I wasn't allowed to see it in theaters. My parents, didn't start losing brain cells until 77. But anyway, this film was so well done. There's so much suspense in it. You don't hardly see the thing that you're supposed to be absolutely terrified about, and that is part of the horror of this film. You were scared by the thing that you don't see, and any movie that can do that to you is vastly superior than the ones that rely on jump scares and those kinds of things, those kinds of mechanics. I think just like comics, like the psychological thrillers and things like that, and Lovecraftian things, this is the kind of film I just absolutely embrace, because of, again, the things that you don't see are more terrifying than the things that you do.
Well,
That's
it
why
definitely
everybody's
makes you
afraid
afraid
of the
of going into the ocean. That's for sure.
Well, and this was my man versus
I
nature
still don't
movie
go
I was
into the
talking
ocean.
about. Yeah. I mean, Jaws is not only my favorite horror film, evidently, since we're counting, because I actually asked Comics, is like, does this count as a horror movie? And I can see why now with some of his choices. And oh yeah, hands down, Jaws is my favorite film of all time, period.
It's a perfect film.
It is. It's a perfect film. I can watch it a million times and never get sick of it. I didn't even care that it was on like clockwork on TNT for years.
Yeah.
Even though it was a bastard for doing that, because whenever I'd plop it on, I'd be like, oh shit, now I got to finish watching it. It's like, it's kind of like Tombstone. Yeah. It's like one of those movies where you stumble on it, you can't not finish watching it. You just got to finish watching it. It's just the greatest film of all time. It's made with courage and stupidity. And, and that's exactly the words of Steven Spielberg. So I'm not making fun of him. That's exactly what he said. Because, there was no way this movie ever should have been made in 1975. And if it wasn't for the fact that the damn shark didn't work, it probably wouldn't have been as good. It just would have been like some crappy B movie, and Steven Spielberg would probably be directing television or dog food commercials, because it was meant to be Hollywood's biggest folly of all time, and it became the biggest film of all time.
It launched the summer blockbuster.
Oh yeah, it changed the way movies are made.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
And
We're here right now
so,
because of Jaws.
Yeah,
Sure.
and it's so weird. Thomas will tell you this, that this movie went way over budget because of the way it was shot. It never should have been done the way it was. And the shark didn't work, like he said, because there was no Stan Winston to make it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
and like Richard Dreyfuss said, he goes, "This movie's going to be a bitch to shoot. It's going to be a glorious film to watch, but I ain't going to make this shit." And he walked away. He told Steven, thanks, but no thanks. And then he saw himself on screen in The Apprenticeship of Duty Kravitz. He's like, this is going to fucking flop. I better go, guys, call Steven and get in that movie.
That's the smartest thing he ever did right there.
Yep.
Oh, thank God for Russia.
That's hilarious.
All right. I'm going to go next. So my number 3 is Alien. And I know that we've already kind of talked about it, but yeah, it's definitely one of those movies that I, throughout my childhood, everyone like adults were talking about how like scary this movie was. So I actually didn't see it till I was, I think I was 13 at the time when I saw it, and just perfect.
Yeah.
Why did Scott ever make a director's cut? I don't understand.
Why did he or didn't he?
Why did he? He cut a scene out and changed the lighting and some music and shit. That's all he really did.
Yeah, but the whole thing with the chest burster scene, and it's like I love the kind of the mythology behind it, where everyone knew that it was a prosthetic body, but nobody knew what was going to happen, and just everybody's reaction was natural and visceral to what happened.
Some of them were
Veronica
pissed.
Cartwright. I watched Alien a couple of days ago. I was showing my son Alien and Aliens for the first time he was watching it, so I got to enjoy it again through his eyes. Veronica Cartwright's jump when that chest burster comes out is so real and so visceral. I jumped.
Yeah,
you know,
she's
I
like,
was
oh, God.
I feel bad for her. She's like, oh my God. And you cannot coach that. It was perfect.
It was
just the horror of that. I mean, the idea that you couldn't feel something like that growing inside of you, you know, and just like the idea that the horror can come from within, you know, like, and the violation of the face huggers, and just how the whole idea is set up, and how the alien is treated like this, basically like this huge cockroach.
Yeah,
you know, of sorts. Like it's so unhuman. It's like insect-like, and the noises that it makes, and again, the slime is just so perfect. It's a lot like Jaws in a sense, to where you don't see too much of the monster, you see just enough.
It's perfectly done.
It's a very, very well done film. Again, I don't know why Ridley ever messed with it.
Yeah, well, it's because it's Ridley. Remember our discussion about Ridley?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was joking about there a little bit.
Ridley's work is never finished, only abandoned. He keeps working and working and working.
Just leave it alone.
Alien is a beautiful looking film. It's beautifully horrific, and it's very gothic, but I think it perfectly does what a horror movie should do. It gets primal. It gets into your skin.
Absolutely.
The other thing too about it, like with isolation being a huge theme within horror movies, it's even worse with this movie, because at least with Camp Crystal Lake, if you run away, you're gonna live. Where everyone's confined on this spaceship, there's nowhere to run. You have to confront it at some point. But what do you do when we humans, we don't have any natural weapons? We facing up against this creature, you're basically naked at that point.
Well, not only that, it's worse than that. It goes back to the whole fact of, like, it comes from within. Like I said, it's parasitic.
Yeah,
you can't even
a lot of things.
Yeah, you can't even hide from it. In any way, shape, or form, because like that's the whole horror of it, is like you don't even know if you're carrying this thing. By the second and third film, we become to this point where, like, who has it and who doesn't, kind of thing. And it's this very, and again, I wish they hadn't made the prequel and the new sequel, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I never saw any of those things. I never saw them.
And again, you have Sigourney Weaver as the final girl.
Because the alien at its core, as just this killing machine, although it's this living, breathing creature that's even worse than that, because it has blood of acid. So
I was going to get to that too. It's like, even if you heard it, you're screwed.
Everything about it, again, it's almost like Wes Craven created it. It's like the worst creature that there ever could be that wasn't human. It's like there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's just
It's elegantly designed to do nothing but kill and absorb people. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Beautiful work. H.R. Giger.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
We owe the failed Dune. The failed Dune is why the alien looks like it does, because Ridley was going to do a version of Dune, and this crazy filmmaker, was his name Jodorowsky, I think his name was, and he was going to do Dune. He's the one who found H.R. Giger and had him start doing storyboards. And when they saw his biomechanical designs, they were like, that's what the alien needs to look like.
H.R. Giger is a funny little dude.
Oh, he was crazy. He was crazy, but he was crazy talented. He was amazing.
It's just funny to listen to him talk, because it's like you look at him and you're just like, okay, you don't know what he's going to sound like. And then his little voice comes out of his mouth. I like to make the aliens look very phallic. And I like the vaginal depiction. And I like to mix with the cybernetic and the human, and it's so beautiful.
It's kind of scary how well you do him.
Is it really? I've listened to enough interviews of him. I should by now. Because he just has this little voice. It's just like, it's like you expect him to be like this.
Rob, man, your impression's kill.
Because you look at him and he does. He looks like this brooding kind of guy. You're expecting him to sound like, like the tall man or some shit like that. Boy, where I made the aliens, I wanted them to have the creepiest hand. You're like expecting him to sound like Kurt Orlock or something. He's like, no, what the fuck is that? He sounds like Michael Jackson with a fucking Dutch accent or something. It's just like, what the fuck?
Oh man, that's hilarious.
The scary Dutchman.
I love him though. He's hilarious in like that weird, unironic way, or however you want to put it. Yeah. He's a genius, definite genius.
Definitely, because he saw the world completely different. I mean, he saw skulls and biomechanical things, and he would mix things that make you uncomfortable that you shouldn't see. And what I love about him is that he could take that kind of dreamlike image and you could see it all the way through to a film. Like you could execute this man's dreams, his paintings in a film, which is remarkable. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was the biggest lost opportunity was Alien 4 when they had that hybrid and it was the most ugliest, god-awful thing I ever saw.
Yeah.
You could have paid the biggest.
Didn't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you could have paid the biggest homage to him in the world by making the hybrid alien his original design.
Yes.
If anybody knows what I'm talking about, the original design looks just like a woman mixed with the alien.
That would have been beautiful.
It has like the jaw of a woman with the whole long head. It has like the breasts and the figure of a woman, but it's all the biomechanical like look of the alien. Yeah. It would have been gorgeous and just like scary as shit at the same time. It'd have been awesome.
A great idea.
Well, the thing I remember, which I thought was funny, is that it was either 79 or 80, but they had the alien toy of the monster.
Yes, I remember
the newer version of that they released.
Couldn't you push the back of its head? And
that's the one I got.
That was amazing. And here's the thing, from an engineering standpoint, the exoskeletal plates and everything from most of his designs actually would function like mechanically. And support weight and do all of those things. It's truly amazing. His designs were ridiculous.
Yeah, they really were. There you go. You've got one.
Yeah.
How big is that model? How big is that one?
It's over 12 inches. It's like 16, I think 13.
I think the original one was like 12 inches, right around there.
Yeah,
I remember thinking about
that is cool.
This is not an original. This is a replica one or whatever. Actually, I think this is an Aliens drone version of that, but yeah,
that is very cool. What a distinctive! I mean, just his design. You see it and you know immediately what it is. I mean, how often can you say that of a painter? It's amazing.
But I always thought that was really funny that the scariest movie to come out of the 70s had a children's toy.
That one barely hit the market, and then the other ones got stopped.
Yeah, I remember seeing it as a kid. I don't remember what store it was that we would go to, but I remember seeing it on the shelves, and I wanted, but my mom wouldn't buy it for me. I was like really young.
Mom's like, no.
Yeah. I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 5 at the time.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, and here's one of the original designs. I think this is a little bit later one. Whoops, wrong one.
It's funny. Y'all sitting there talking about all these things with your kids, and I feel like I'm the Fatal J of the bunch now. I'm the baby here.
Oh,
you have to carry on my legacy. You have to carry it on.
Trying to share that one. There we go.
Oh yeah.
I remember that.
Oh my god,
with the big
eyeballs.
eyeballs.
That in his Necronomicon book, I think, or I forget what it was called.
Yes, it was. I believe. Yes.
Yeah. That would have been a great homage to have the kind of blacked eyes. And
I really like the biochemical in the penis.
Yeah.
Do you know how many hours
he really liked penises? He really liked penises.
Hours and hours of working the foam to get to that point. That's just insane.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Oh, but he's an amazing artist, though. Nobody does anything like it. And didn't he? What was the? Didn't he do a Police cover? The band Police. Which one was it?
He might have, yeah.
I know
trying
that
to
he
think of
did
which one it
Steve
was.
Stevens, one of his covers.
Unless I'm thinking about Emerson, Lake and Palmer, maybe.
It is Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's one of his paintings is the cover.
Yep. That's what I was thinking of.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing. Good pick. That
All
was
right,
definitely on my list.
Oh.
All right,
thank
so my number 3 is the reason I mentioned we was going through is Carrie. Carrie, that one got me.
They're all
As a
gonna
kid,
laugh at you.
that got me as a kid. Like, you know what's crazy? The thing that always stood out, I remember the first time I saw it, and you know, I guess when you're a kid and the thing that traumatizes you the most is at the part of the end. Like, as an adult, when I see it, it didn't really bother me. But when I see it as a kid at the end, when she was kind of like in the house, like it almost like shit, the blood all over her, and like was like standing there and like looking at the Christ effigy, whatever. Yeah, that scared me. It was just something about that, the way she was. It's just like, ugh, I can't see it.
Sissy Spacek in that role is just amazing, and they've tried I don't know how many times, not what 3 or 4 times to kind of remake it.
Yeah.
Including that shitty sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You just can't do it without her. She was just she nailed it.
And by the way, the crazy thing about it is like, when I watched it as an adult, I was like, this has some serious nudity in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. I didn't think of that, you know what I'm saying? But you know.
Yeah, but it's also that kind of like coming of age. You know, she gets her period and doesn't know what's going on.
That's true.
But take note, Netflix, you can tell a story without actually having kids on screen here, folks. Because these are all adults playing teenagers.
I said that too. One of my favorite coming of age movies when I was, young teenager. How was I forget what it was American Pie. Perfect coming of age.
Yes.
Even though it was a comedy, but
yeah, it's a coming of age movie. Yeah.
Everybody in there was all over 21, but they were playing high school kids, and you still got your point across. So I don't understand what they were thinking when they did that. So
I don't want to get down that road, but no.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Carrie was my number 3. So.
Yeah, the end of that movie is just so brutal.
Yeah. They're gonna laugh at you.
Bloodbath.
They're gonna laugh at you.
Well, and I know a lot of women who relate to that film or hold that up as one of their favorites because of the characters and the fact that it does have a lot of strong female characters in it. Or well, I don't know if you call them strong, but because Carrie's kind of fucked up, but
crazy female character.
But I mean, there's just this whole aspect of there is the good girl in there too, though the final
the one
girl
that survives.
Yeah,
she's the final girl.
And just coming from Stephen King, it doesn't feel like a Stephen King story. It is so off his. It was almost like he had like a friend of his write it for him that was a woman. He's just like, yeah, I want to tell this story, but no, it's really strange because it's coming from him. It's not in his normal repertoire.
It's kind of off-brand. It was off-brand for him by far. You wouldn't think of him. It's sort of in the same way you're like, oh right, Stand By Me. That's
but now wasn't that one of his big first novels though too, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Enough.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He just kind of went went in a different direction, but he found a different voice, which is great.
No, it's a great story, and again, that remake is junk. I think they did a TV movie of it a couple years back that I don't remember very well.
With Chloe Moretz.
Well casted, but it was just junk because I don't know if Tom or anybody else knows anything about the behind the scenes of this film, but when they first shot it, their initial idea was to make it closer to the book. And it was. And then MGM saw it and they're like, no. We want all this crap from the movie in it that wasn't in the book.
Yeah.
And so that's when they basically just made it a remake of the original.
Yeah. It became a Frankenstein monster in that they took it and sewed things together that didn't belong together. And it became a remake of, the film rather than the source material. And it just destroyed it.
Plus, I think they tried shooting it as PG-13 originally, if I'm not mistaken.
You can't do that with
some other shit. And Chloe, you can tell, like, between the reshoots that she aged like a year or something like that. It looks like almost like she grew almost a foot. I
feel bad for her because she keeps getting like the worst luck with these damn movies. Like the last one with the.
Well, and sadly, she's miscast. I mean, it's not a movie for her.
Right.
If anything, they should have waited for that girl from Stranger Things to get a little older and do it. She's probably more in line for what you got to do for
Millie
Carrie.
Bobby Brown?
Yeah, because Chloe's too outgoing and bubbly. Like that's kind of
they
the
needed
problem.
someone that was introverted, sort of, and maladjusted.
Mm.
And that's why Sissy Spacek just plays it so perfectly, because you can feel like the angst on her face because she knows how to play that kind of a part. You can tell she was probably raised in an environment where she did probably question her, self-value at some point. And, like that's kind of the whole thing you need for that character. And I just don't think like Chloe could capture that, especially being a young actress at a young age. She's been, doted on since forever. So it's kind of hard to probably get to that place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like, didn't they also like try doing a sequel to Carrie? And it was like the final.
It was
girl
basically a remake. Yeah. Well, she's in it. Yes, but it is a sequel. Yeah.
Oh, so okay.
It's called The Rage Carrie 2. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. The Rage Carrie 2.
It's just basically an updated version of it. Is all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that's one of those cases of just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Walk away.
Certain things you just shouldn't touch.
Yeah,
that's an odd pick for you, Damaj, and I didn't expect that out of you. Other than
good pick.
Yeah, I told you I'm going. Like, I'm going for the actual. Like you guys are going like all into technical stuff. I'm talking about stuff that actually scared the shit out of me as a kid. So that's what I'm going for. That's why I said I got a couple honorable mentions here. So I mean, once we get done, but you'll get my number one. I'm not going to tell you though.
Well, for me, Alien, that was at 13, that was a pretty tense watch.
Yeah, Alien.
That was
definitely gets under your skin. Yeah, you're right.
You know what got me? You know what gets me? So like, I get you how it was. It can be a horror movie and it has, but always makes me, and which is gonna be funny because I'm gonna bring up something in one of my next ones. But when you talk about something that's sci-fi, that kind of leans more towards sci-fi, it kind of almost takes the sting out of it for me because I almost think about, okay, well, this is science fiction.
Right,
but a little scary. So, but you're gonna get a kick out of the next one I have, though.
All right.
Let's go with Tom next.
Okay. Well, since Evil Dead 2, good pick from Culture. Already got picked. In Exorcist, of course, Thomas. They were on my top 5, but I will, in going with your idea that science fiction can be a little distancing. For horror, I want to suggest that horror can exist without any supernatural element. I want to say Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Silence of the Lambs as a horror movie, as a procedural crime horror movie, that is a masterpiece.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. And it gets something that, even though there's no supernatural element to it, cannibalism freaks the shit out of me. Yeah. And even though it's not on my list, I mean, it is definitely a great horror movie. Yes. And and I refused to watch that movie for years because of the fact that cannibalism just freaks the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, and really, it's not even Hannibal that freaks me out. It's Buffalo Bob, man. The lotion down in the abduction stuff, and the whole thing making suits out of human flesh. I mean, all of that, which happened, which is based on a real guy.
Gein,
it could happen next door to you. That's what makes that movie terrifying. Is that could be going on in the house right next door to you right now while we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things out there like Jeffrey Dahmer, all these like really,
It's the lotion on the basket, the basket on the hole. I mean, that guy is creepy, and the actor did an amazing job. In fact, when I see him in a guest star role for something else on TV, I'm always like, it's Buffalo Bob. He even sounds like Buffalo Bob.
No, it's totally a slasher film parading as a psychological thriller.
Yes,
both Buffalo Bob and horror movie. Hannibal Lecter are basically Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. He's like a Freddy Krueger in that he gets in your head literally and messes with you, but it's a procedural crime. And let's face it, Demi as a director was amazing in it. The cast, it had Scott Glenn in it, Jodie Foster, and all these amazing people. Yeah. So Silence of the Lambs, we forget, is a great horror movie.
Oh yeah. Hello, Clarice.
And the one chick who gets captured, she makes the breaks the rule of being alone.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many, great things. Oh.
God. I'm trying to remember who played Buffalo Bill, but I think he played the police detective in Monk.
Oh,
yes,
he
did.
TV series.
Either. I know.
Was his name Ted something? Ted. I have to IMDb him. I will look on IMDb while we're talking.
Hold on.
Yeah. I have it pulled up too. I'm trying to find. Buffalo Bill.
I mean, he was one of the top billed
I think
in
it's
that.
Buffalo Bob, not Buffalo Bill. That's why.
Silence of the Lambs. Here we go. That was a good movie. What was his name?
I don't know.
Funny thing is, I'll probably remember right before you get it.
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine. Okay.
Ted Levine, who had that amazing voice and just, boom, there he is. He's
Well, that's
great.
interesting because they don't credit him as Buffalo Bill. It's James Gum.
Yeah, that's
Which
his
is
name.
his real name.
The guy's real name. Yeah.
Yeah, but wow. I mean, talk about a great character. He's like, am I beautiful? You know,
tell me I'm sexy.
Yeah,
Would
the
you fuck me?
cannibalism stuff.
I'd
I mean,
fuck me.
cannibalism is just against our biology.
Oh,
It's
it hits that terror aspect.
evolutionary.
Yeah.
It carries the crying of the lambs.
Yes, and now this ham-handed segue. It won't do.
God, and Anthony Hopkins was so good in that movie too.
Yeah, that movie deserved every Oscar it got. You know, and it's very rare for a genre movie to get nominated, let alone win anything.
Yeah.
But out of the park. You know something's good when you now take it for granted, where you're like, that's just Anthony Hopkins doing Hannibal Lecter. It's like he invented that, he created that. You know, we look at it now and we're like, but there wasn't that before that movie.
No. The census taker tested me once. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yes, I love it. That is delicious horror.
It really is. But that's one thing too. It's like anything that kind of goes against the societal norms, it could be very, very frightening.
Yes, it is. And it brings up very primal things in us. And you're right. It's counterintuitive, but they normalize it in a weird way in the movie. And it's a great film on so many levels. And they make, Jodie's character smart. He's a little smarter, but then they're actually teaming up to fight someone who's even more evil, So it's an amazing script, It's amazing.
All right, Thomas, I think you're the last one on the list.
Yeah, which one are we on?
We're on number 3.
My number 3 is actually one that hasn't been talked about yet, although my 2 and 1 have. Child's Play from 1988, the Tom Holland and Don Mancini classic. Came in at the tail end of the slasher horror era and is ironically enough the only one that is still going in its original continuity with a new series coming pretty soon. Child's Play I feel like is very overlooked film sometimes when it comes to horror movies, even though Chucky isn't himself per se, but Brad Dourif just made that character. I mean, and I met him once via internet, but it still was like crazy to just talk to the guy who is Chucky.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's so neat about that movie too is how they shot it, how they built like a subfloor so they could, move the puppet around. It's like, seeing some of those techniques are just really neat. And of course, was the new one CG at all, or how did they?
The newest one, the remake, they did, I think, some, but not a lot. And then in some scenes in some of the last couple movies, they've done some CG stuff, but very rarely, very, very rarely.
But yeah, talk about again, another movie that is just a perfect example of craftsmanship when it comes to their horror elements and the way they made the doll work.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, they stole that technique from Children's Television Workshop, actually, for building the subfloor and operating the puppets. And then, of course, George Lucas used it in the Star Wars films with Yoda.
Well, and the film itself has such a historied past that we can't spend all time getting into, but originally started as Blood Buddies, and then it was called Batteries Not Included. And Chucky was originally Buddy, but of course they had to change that because of My Buddy came out in the meantime. And then they changed. Then the original element of the whole idea of it was based on the Cabbage Patch craze of the 80s. And the idea was, okay, you got all these dolls that can blink, move, speak, piss and poop and everything else. What if one could actually bleed? Well, so the initial idea was if you played with Chucky too hard or the good guy doll too hard, they would bleed. So you had to buy good guy brand Band-Aids and all these other things that had to be specific for the brand. And it was all about the brand. And originally what happened was Andy mixed his blood in with Chucky, they made a blood pact. But what this did was bring out Andy's id in the doll. So everything that he killed the babysitter and killed his dentist and all these things. So then like that was the original concept. And And then they brought in the voodoo element and created Charles Lee Ray, who was basically this killer known as the Lakeshore Strangler. And he put his soul into a doll that ended up in this kid's, he got for his birthday party or whatever. And yeah, that's the news story. And of course, like the great scene, of course, is when the mom's looking at the box and it says, batteries included, and the batteries drop out of the bottom. And she's like, what the fuck? And she goes over to the doll and she picks him up and she opens up the back of the batteries. And a second later, his head spins around. He's like, hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Yeah.
One of the best fucking scenes in horror history.
Then
it keeps going because she drops him and he rolls underneath the couch. And then she picks him up again. And she's like, talk, damn you. I'm going to throw you into the fire. And he's like, you filthy bitch, you stupid slut. I'll teach you to fuck with me. And he turns like full on Chucky. And it's like, yeah. He's like
that's another good example of a movie maniac that had such an awesome personality.
And the best part about the first film is like they had the gimmick of, the longer he stays in the body, the more human he becomes. Well, if you watch the doll throughout the first film and the first film only, he becomes more and more human. His eyebrows start going from being painted to real. His freckles start to fade away. He starts to get like a 5 o'clock shadow almost kind of thing, and his eyes grow darker, and he keeps getting more and more like looking human. They do a great fucking job. There's actually like 5 different faces they used for the first film.
Damn, now I gotta go and rewatch that movie.
Yeah, it's worth a rewatch.
I didn't even know about that. That's actually
I didn't know about that either.
Yeah,
that's very cool. It's
like
a creepy Pinocchio.
Things like John comes back to haunt you every time. Last night I got shot. And it hurt. It hurt like a son of a bitch. It even bled. You're becoming more human. The more time you spend in that body, the more human you become. Yeah. So then he's like, I'm going to be a 10-year-old boy.
Damn, dude, you get all the movie quotes and everything. It's like I
have seen Child's Play so many fucking times, dude. You have no idea.
It's like I watched it like,
man.
I want to say like once back in the 90s.
I still think I'm with I'm with Rob Altus in the chat. I mean, doll films, the dolls. I'm sorry, for whatever reason they freak me out.
No, they do. They are freaky.
Yeah,
and that's
like,
another
you
one.
walk into a room, it's like, okay.
God, I was visiting my brother in California, and I ended up staying at his girlfriend's place. It was really her family's place, but the room they had me in was a room filled with porcelain dolls. And we talk about, again, hitting that kind of visceral, like,
I'd be like, I'm out. I'm sleeping in my car.
I gotta, I'm going to shut my eyes. I gotta pull the blanket over my head, and I'm not gonna move because I don't want to be sworn by killer dolls.
I would have turned each and every one of them away from me.
Well, I mean, they're all like I said, they're porcelain dolls, man. I don't want to touch these things because they're fragile, but
that's some scary shit, man.
That is scary. There's something disturbing about dolls.
I don't even know, like, what are the purpose of those things? Like, why would you get that? Other than to scare the shit out of somebody. Why would you do that?
Let alone a room filled with them.
Yeah,
I've seen somebody who had like a room full of them, like, those ventriloquist dummies and things like that. It's just creepy. Wasn't there a movie with Anthony Hopkins called Magic where it was him talking through his dummy, his ventriloquist dummy? Did you ever see that?
Yeah,
it's called Magic.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's creepy. Yeah, it's definitely worth a look. Definitely.
Oh yeah, but I mean, of all the killer doll movies, I still say Chucky is the king.
Yeah, well, absolutely, man. All right, before we go on to number 2, we'll get some super chats. So Corey B for $4.99, Gentlemen, The Shining, Wendy. Yes. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. Jack freaking Nicholson nailed it. Yeah, he killed it. Yeah, he did. Man. That was he was made for that role, I think.
Top 10, but didn't make my top 5. Sorry.
No, yeah.
Well, you could always tell a great actor, in my opinion, is someone that you cannot imagine anyone else in that role. Once they've inhabited it, he really is that character, and you can't imagine someone else doing it because he became that guy, and he inhabited him, and we quote him as him. You can't imagine anyone else.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, just like talk about an iconic scene. Here's Johnny. That was fantastic. Toxic Man flew for $5. I'm with Tom. My number one is 2000. What Lies Beneath. The cinematography was good. It messed with you and scared you at the same time, but no gore.
No gore. Yeah, it gets in your head.
Yeah,
messes you up, man. Those are good films.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Out of anything, I'm not really big on slasher films. I love the movie that fucks with your head because, yeah.
Well, let's be clear. I love slasher films, but they can't just be, gore for gore's sake.
Yeah.
That has to have something else to hang it on. Like, even if it's something as loose as like Dawn of the Dead or something like that, it still has to have some redeeming value to it, or I'm just not going to enjoy it.
Right.
So
well, and a lot of them too. It's like towards the end of the '80s, a lot of the slasher films they just started turning into camp, especially the Friday the 13th movies.
Yes, when you started to become self-parody and they became aware of what they were, like the original Halloween was so great because it didn't know what it was yet. Like he was inventing the language of those films, and he was using the frame, the widescreen frame to kind of create scares, and the body count was remarkably low, but you remember it being high.
Mm-hmm.
And those kind of slasher films still had an element of, that crazy guy could live next door, which is what we were talking about with Silence of the Lambs. So I think when it became supernatural and got too crazy, you raised a good point. It's like it becomes science fiction, and you're like, it's science fiction. It doesn't feel as real like it could happen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because that's like the funny thing, like with the Friday the 13th movies, where you have like Jason Lives, and it's like this is like officially where Jason's more of a zombie than a real person or whatnot.
That's still my favorite Friday film, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think it's like was it 6 and 3 are like the best Friday the 13th movies
besides the first one and maybe 2. Yeah, 4 is really good too. Actually, I mean, here's the thing: all the Nightmare on Elm Street films, for the most part, as far as the series, is probably the most consistent as being good. Friday the 13th is kind of hit and miss near the end, but the first like 7 films are pretty solid as far as Friday the 13th go. I mean, they're not. They're not fucking Shakespeare, don't get me wrong, or Hitchcock for that matter. But I mean, considering the amount of money that goes in them, the amount of actors that go through them, I mean, you get people, everyone from like fucking Kevin Bacon to Crispin Glover.
Yeah, I know. The fact that Crispin Glover was in
all these other people going through the series that you're just like, and the chick who plays Ginny in part 3 is fucking great too. I mean, there's some really great actors. Part 2. Can't remember which now, but yeah, part two. And so like, yeah, you've got some really great actors and actresses who come through there. And for as simplistic as Friday the 13th is, it works because it has, the elements that were parodied by so many others. And even though it was started off as a ripoff of Halloween and Psycho, it really came into its own.
It also has some really iconic kills throughout the entire series. I mean, and they I know that Savini was involved with them.
Oh yeah,
I think it was a few of them, and
then
just like some
later down the line, and then
Okay, so now we're moving on to our number 2s,
and also I think what's his face who runs the Walking Dead now, Greg Nicotero, I think even worked on some of those too.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah. Demaj, you want to kick us off for number 2?
All right. So, remember what I was just saying before about sci-fi?
Yeah.
So this one, the reason I chose this one is because while it does have the sci-fi element of it, what it does for me is that it takes the sci-fi element and says, what if the science fiction goes into the mystical, and that is Event Horizon.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fact that the whole point of it is like you don't get this when you're first watching it, and then when you finally figured out, because the whole thing was they wanted to have a warp drive basically, and what was the fastest way to go through one point A to point B? It's a straight line. Says no, the fastest way is to basically fold time basically, and by folding time, they went to hell.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow. Yeah. That was crazy. And like when you first see them cut the eyes out, I'm like, oh.
Those images have stuck with me for years.
Yeah, it's still like I can still envision
Sam Neill,
the cutting the eyes out part, and like and then when they think they make it back home, they're still in hell. Like they bring hell with them. Like I'm like, wow, wow, like that's so crazy. So that's why I say the where you got the science fiction element of it, it kind of takes you like, okay, maybe this might not be able to happen. But then when you say, what if the science makes you, it's almost like, I don't know if you guys are big on this, but I'll bring it up because, you know, I'm the whippersnapper here.
Oh, you kid.
What is it? Full Metal Alchemist, right? And it's an anime, and basically what they do is like it's almost like it's like the what they call it, the law of equal exchange, whatever, and they
equivalent exchange.
So, yeah, and it's almost like they're going into hell because the things that they're trying to do is because it's like it's science, but they're going into the mystic. So it's kind of like that. That's kind of what it is to me, and but at the end of the day, that shit scared the shit out of me, and that's why it's my number 2.
I saw that. No, I didn't think of that one, but it has some of the images that to this day bother me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw that. I saw that in the theater with a friend of mine.
I saw it too. Me too. Yep, that's why I seen it.
And I was in college, and when they got to the scene where you finally find out what happens to the crew, and you're just inundated with this insane mess on film, and you're like, is that guy pulling out somebody's intestines through his mouth?
Yeah.
And you had like the captain holding his eyes, and he's chanting in Latin, "Save yourself from hell," and you're just it's images of hell. You caught it so perfectly, and you're right. It married science fiction with the mystical, where you're like, well, if we push science to the point of illogic, maybe we will have something like that happen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a good pick. That movie doesn't get a lot of love, but it's actually a good movie.
It is absolutely a good movie.
The funny thing about it is that some people, I forget what I heard it said, but they say that magic is just science that we haven't figured out yet. So when you think about it, can we push science to the point that it's almost mystical? Can we? You know, that's what makes it scary. So
I agree. That's a good pick.
I think we almost have, though, Damajnai, in so many different ways, and it's not been beneficial to us despite our enjoyment of it. So.
Oh, you mean the internet? Yeah. That's
Speaking of Event Horizon, it will finally the fabled director's cut will finally see the light of day in March.
Oh, really? Is this the one where they have a lot more of that scene?
Yep. Finally.
So I got a chance to meet Sean Pertwee at Comic-Con, and I actually had him sign his headshot for Event Horizon because of course I got to. And he was telling me about the scene and how that Paul Anderson hired a bunch of porn stars for that scene, and they and just how it went on for like 5-10 minutes, I guess, initially, rather than the quick glimpses that we got. And it was just like completely insane.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I'll be curious to see the cut that's coming out. I didn't know they were doing a new iteration or a new cut of that.
I haven't seen that movie since I've seen it in the theater, so I might have to check that out.
I'm gonna have to psych myself up to watch that movie.
I don't know if I can do more of that scene, though. I don't know. Don't know if I can do more of that
scene. I have to be in the right mood.
I have to have like a half a bottle of something next to me. I'm not gonna
whatever they drank when they were writing it.
Yeah. Oh man, not absinthe though. That's probably what man.
All right, Tom, what is your number 2?
Well, my 2 and 1 were already killed, but I brought up I
said Tom, not Thomas.
Oh, Thomas, duh. I did it. I knew I'd do it.
We get into this all the time. I'm gonna have to change my name.
Shut up.
I did so good till then.
I wanted to kind of throw back a little bit on my number 2 because a lot of the ones that would have been my 2 you guys have picked that were really good. My first notion was to say one that we talked about at the very beginning, which was Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I think tapped into that whole paranoia and the Red Scare thing. But there's another movie I want to shine a light on that I bet a lot of people haven't seen, but it is the great-great-grandfather of all the haunted house movies, and that is The Haunting by Robert Wise. Robert Wise did this movie in 1963. It's actually Scorsese and Spielberg's favorite horror movie. It had Julie Christie in it, I think, and it was based on the Haunting of Hill House, that book. And it has some of the best use of lenses and space. It's a black and white film, but he experimented with a wide angle lens back then to get some kind of unsettling madness in the character. And the movie actually holds up. Like, they used photosensitive makeup on the actors to get these weird looks and morphing a woman from like childhood to old age and all this stuff. It's worth a look. If you get a chance, The Haunting it's hard to find, but it's worth the watch. And Robert Wise could make anything. What's that?
And obviously that one's been remade, I think, a couple times now.
Yeah, I think so. But the original is amazing, and you don't see it very often. But if you want to see, like, he was a master, Robert Wise. He was able to make anything. And I think he rolled the money that he made in Sound of Music or West Side Story. He rolled into, hey, I want to do this horror movie. And he ended up making this horror film and just pushing the boundaries back then. But it's just good storytelling, too. It's a really good old school haunted house film.
Yeah, I remember seeing the remake with was it Luke Wilson?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they don't even touch this movie.
No, I didn't think it was very good. I thought it was actually kind of boring.
And our nerd culture friends might recognize the name Robert Weiss because he was the director of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
That's right. He directed Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He did. Did he do Andromeda Strain?
Let me look.
Did do Andromeda Strain, which was another good science as horror film.
Yes.
Yeah, he did that. So he was a chameleon. He was able to do a lot of different genres. He edited Orson Welles.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he edited Citizen Kane.
Yeah, and Magnificent Ambersons. I mean, the guy could do anything. But it definitely, if you're watching this and you're like, I've seen it all. I've seen all the new movies. Check out The Haunting, the original 1963. It's a remarkably well-made film.
I will do that.
There's a lot of really good old black and white ones, specifically like the ones with Vincent Price that are just amazing.
And check out the Hammer stuff, Christopher Lee, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just picked up one of his Blu-ray box sets from Shout, the Vincent Price one. Yeah.
Yes.
His
Edgar Allan Poe stuff was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I got some super chats real quick, and this is a good one for the panel here. So, Toxic Man Flu for $2. Does the panel consider Shaun of the Dead a horror movie?
It's a kind of more of a satire, although it does have horror elements.
It's a zombie movie for sure.
It's definitely a zombie movie, but I almost feel like it doesn't quite horrify in that it has too much of a wink. Like, it knows what it is. So I would call it parody. Like even less, it's less horror than, Evil Dead 2 was scary, but it was scary in that Weird War comic, it caught the spirit of the comic where it was like slapstick comedy and then terror. But I feel like Shaun of the Dead was satire. It was aware of what it was aping and made fun of, but I didn't feel like they were in real jeopardy at any point. I don't know. Did you guys feel like they were in?
Well, I think at the end they do. Maybe when they make it to the Winchester, I think is where it definitely turns from satire into a real zombie movie because you have that one guy who gets ripped in half. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of like but again, I think the problem with Shaun of the Dead is the only reason it exists is because of Dawn of the Dead.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, but then again, Return of the Living Dead is kind of also in that same vein. So,
true.
I don't know. I guess that's kind of a toss-up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I would definitely consider it more so a parody film, like you said, than anything else.
Yeah, I think it is parody more than anything.
Well, I'd say a better word, maybe satire, if I'm not wrong.
Well, satire.
Because parody implies to me more something like Airplane,
scary movie, or
movie, like to where satire means like it's more tongue in cheek. Yeah, we're making fun of Dawn of the Dead, but it's also taking itself a bit more seriously than a parody would.
Right.
Good point. Yeah, you're right. It's satire.
Which kind of speaks to the other movie I brought up in the private chat too. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Ords board for $1.99. The amazing people, Hail Comics Division. What's up, Ords? How you doing?
Thank you.
Let's see. Crap, it just jumped on me real quick.
Yeah,
So,
homage works, but I think satire is a better word, just because it's aware of what it's doing. Homage is just you kind of picking things from other things more so than, I don't know.
Yeah.
all right. So Corey B for $4.99, best Hammer horror film. I say Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Actually, I have not seen that.
There's a lot of good Hammer films, actually. You guys, are you fans of Hammer films?
Yeah, there's one I remember. It was one of the earlier Dracula movies I saw with Christopher Lee, I want to say, in it, but I'm trying to remember which one it was.
I've probably seen them not realizing what they
I
were.
remember something in the beginning of the movie, like a bat coming through a window. Oh,
Yeah, there was
like breaking through the window.
and they also didn't they do Captain? I'm trying to find it. Like Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter was really good.
Yeah.
They did a version of there was one, God, I'm trying to remember. It was like The Curse of Frankenstein. It was like late 50s. It was actually really well made. It may have been Christopher Lee was in that one. And it may have been Peter Cushing.
I was gonna say Cushing and Christopher Lee and Vincent Price were in most of them, if not.
Yeah. So there was a couple ones that were really good. There was one, Twins of Evil. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but that was really good as well.
I've seen a lot, but there's
worth
some
checking
I just
out.
don't remember
Like,
the names.
Yeah, that's my problem too, because I remember watching a lot of them on TBS and shit as a kid and late night, or maybe not
same
TBS
here.
or USA, one of those channels on cable. But yeah, Ed Brewer brings up the Frank Langella Dracula. I like that, but that one's more of a romance, kind of a more romanticized version of Dracula, I guess I'd call it, than a horror kind of version. I don't know.
Right.
I'd have to watch it again. It's been a couple years.
Yeah, that had a John Williams score, though, that was amazing. I just listened to the soundtrack to that, and he just knocked it out of the park. It's one of his lesser-known soundtracks, but it's really good.
Horror of Dracula, is that the one I'm thinking of, Corey B? Thanks.
Maybe, yeah.
Get that one.
I
like that one.
Well, Lee was in Count Dracula.
He was also in
Christopher Lee
Dracula,
did a lot
the
after that.
1958 one.
I was gonna say Christopher Lee did a bunch of them, and some of them are connected, and some of them aren't.
Yeah, because I remember Brides of Dracula.
Right.
I remember watching it. I don't remember the details anymore because it was a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, there's all those things that they start blending together.
Yeah.
All right. Zayden Star Shadow for $2. Does anyone remember Wishmaster?
yeah.
I do.
That was the Telltale. Mid '90s.
Yeah, it was mid-90s.
It was mid-90s. I think I was working at ITC at the time, which was a production company that did The Prisoner. And I think Wishmaster got distributed through them. I think I saw the dailies and stuff from Wishmaster, but I don't think I ever saw the movie.
I don't think I saw it either. I remember that, and like Puppet Master was like another big franchise back in the 90s.
Oh, I love
that. Was a thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, Thomas, what is your number 2?
My original number 2 was Nightmare on Elm Street, but since we talked about that, I'm gonna bring. I do have some other movies I figure I'd bring up. Gremlins was a horror film, horror comedy, kind of bringing in that satire kind of thing we were talking about. There's several different kinds of horror films. There's like the possession kind of horror films, or the ghost haunted kind of films.
Mm-hmm.
The slasher films, the stalker kind of films. Then you have like the invasion or the pod people films. And Gremlins makes fun of the pod people type movies. And Joe Dante pays loving homage to things like in the original Invasion of Body Snatchers. And at the same time, It's a Wonderful Life. So,
there's two things you don't hear together very often.
And now that you hear that, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally Gremlins, because it is. It's this idea of the perfect town that you see in something like a Capra film taken over by something you see in a 1950s sci-fi horror film.
Right.
And
no, I totally see it, because it's like taking place with what's supposed to be the most joyous time of year, and then turning it and twisting it into a complete nightmare.
And what really nails that movie home is that story from Phoebe Cates that Joe Dante fought tooth and fucking nail to keep in the movie, because they are like, cut it, get rid of it. It makes no sense. It doesn't need to be there. And you're like, no, it makes complete fucking sense.
Absolutely.
Because it has everything to do with how her character is totally just oblivious to Christmas throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, you finally understand why. It's like, oh shit. she has seen some shit before this. Like, you know, like this is some pretty fucked up shit to be dealing with, you know, and like at the same time, it's this glorious Looney Tunes cartoon. All at the same time. And the second film really wears that. Because like,
this is uncivilized.
Yeah.
What we want is, you know, the normal things.
Yeah. Blake Sinclair brings up one of my favorite. It's definitely my top 8 out of my 10, which is The Frighteners, which is a
Do you guys know that was meant to be
movie?
Yep. Do you know that was meant to be Tales from the Crypt Part 3?
No, I didn't.
Yep. That's why Robert Zemeckis is one of the producers on it. But since Bordello of Blood flopped, they changed it to where it was just a straight horror movie, and they didn't do all the Crypt Keeper wraparounds.
Yeah, that is like my favorite Peter Jackson film.
Yeah, Peter did really. He did some interesting horror stuff. Like, didn't he do Bad Taste as well?
Yeah,
did he do that?
yeah.
Yeah, he did a lot that were really kind of like campy. What was it?
And Brain. Well, Brain. It had different names in different countries. But
what was the one with the that like is so over the top? Crazy?
Dead Alive, I think is what
Dead
we call
Alive.
it.
Dead Alive. Yeah, which is a good double bill with Evil Dead 2, don't you think?
All right,
Culture's got a timeout.
Comics just said that his favorite Peter Jackson film was The Frighteners.
What's wrong with that?
I know, because of Lord of the Rings.
It's like a trilogy of films that like everybody in the chat might come to your house and murder you over.
Okay, I understand where comics is coming from, though. You've got like, okay, let's look at Peter Jackson like the Ramones, okay? And the Ramones up and decided, you know what? We're going to make an opera album. Not only that, we're going to make a trio of opera albums. That's basically what he did.
That's right. Brain Damage was the Australian name, or I guess European.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to call. Brain
yeah.
Damage was the original name, yeah.
But yeah, no, exactly. Okay, because if you look at it, it's like, as much as I love the Lord of the Rings, it's not. He's simply the director for those movies. All right, so yeah, we're with the Frighteners, that is very much one of his films.
Dude, I love you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Tom looks like he wants to say something about it.
I mean, I like the film a lot, but I think there's a lot of Peter Jackson in those Lord of the Ring films.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I think for me, the Two Towers is the pinnacle of him at his height of his powers. I think he's great at doing other genres. And obviously I think Lord of the Rings is just an accomplishment on so many levels. We're still talking about it, and we will be, but I see what you mean on a personal level, and the sort of twinkle in his eye. I feel like Peter Jackson kind of likes to go in the back alley occasionally and get his hands bloody and do something like that. So
yeah. Don't get me wrong.
I agree with you.
Lord of the Rings are fantastic.
Yeah, he's either in
movies.
David Lean mode. Yeah, if he's making spectacle, or then he gets in more of a Sam Raimi mode and does that, which is great. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's my favorite Peter Jackson movie, but I would say it's one of my favorite horror movies.
I didn't say I agreed. I just said I understand, because Corey B is
yeah,
right.
I don't agree with you, but I understand it.
King Kong, hands down, is his best film. I'm just kidding. No, I do love King Kong, though. I do actually love King Kong.
Yeah, he loves King Kong too. He's a huge King Kong fan.
All right.
Yeah, I actually liked his version of it. I didn't hate it. I held a special place for Kong. And it's one of those movies. I don't care how many times they remake it. I really don't. You can't not remake it enough. Like, it's just one of those
things
movies.
that
I like the one with Samuel Jackson. I thought that one was
that one was
Skull Island.
God, I can't wait till Kong versus Godzilla.
I have not seen that movie yet. Still, I've not seen.
You need to go see that.
Skull Island's really, really good. Even though Brie Larson's,
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. How did I know you were going to say that?
Brie Larson actually does a pretty decent job.
You want me to say something funny?
I wouldn't go that far.
You want me to say something
decent.
funny?
I said decent. I didn't say great. I said decent.
The crazy thing is, I didn't even realize that she was in Community, because I actually used to really love that show. She was actually like Community, the college show, the little comedy with.
Yeah, I was on that show.
Yeah, he was.
I did that show.
You did that show?
Yeah, he was on it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
My character name was Paradox.
Look up his
episodes. Yeah.
Your character name.
Yeah, look up his IMDb.
Huh?
His IMDb links in the group chat.
Don't put my IMDb in. Don't put in that. You're bored.
I had to. So
yeah,
they
I've
knew
done a
who you
few
were.
things.
I had to show them like this
That's
guy's
cool.
done shit. Trust me, it's a
Yeah.
surprise.
But anyway, she was in there, and I didn't
I'm
realize
that guy
that
that you just come up to me in a swimming pool and you go, "Do you work at my office?" That's what I usually get. I was in Hawaii one time. A guy came up to me in the luau.
Well,
He's like, "Do I?
I got to
work with
retell
you?
the.
Do
I got to tell the story of the
I'm
first
like,
time I met him.
I don't know.
Because I only seen the stuff he had done with John Cleese. So I thought he was British.
That's right.
And the first time I met him, he starts talking, and I'm like, "This ain't the guy. Is this his handler? Wait, that's him." But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Holy
he
shit!
thought I was the assistant to me. Yeah. He's like,
so
"Wait, you're not
great.
the British guy?"
I said that. Yeah,
no,
like I like
I
thinking
work
that.
with Brit as much as I do an American. It's ironic. I would say 50% of the TV stuff and the audio stuff, voiceover stuff. If I do games, I'm a Brit. Like you'd be like, "Wait a minute, you're in Call of Duty and you're the British guy?" It's very rare that I'll be an American. Like I was an American in Red Dead Redemption, those two games. I used my own voice, and I remember shooting myself in the back while I was playing it. And there were people online, and I go, "Hey, I just shot myself in the back." They're like, "That sounds exactly like your voice." I'm like, "That's me. I just killed myself."
And let me rephrase what I said.
Who did you play Red Dead Redemption?
I played a bunch of different characters. I was in the game.
Yeah, he was.
I played 4 different people in that. I'm also the guy when you're riding on your horse. There's always a guy that picks a fight with you. He's always like, "Hey, what are you doing, man? Why don't you turn around? What are you looking at?" And then you got to draw on him and shoot.
No.
That's me.
Let me be clear.
By the way, that game is fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. When I say that before, the only thing I see, I should rephrase that. It's the only thing I remember seeing that he was in because he's been in so much shit.
Yeah.
I shit you not. You have seen this man probably a half or heard his voice at least a half a dozen times and didn't realize it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm in
that's
the new.
cool. I
new
learned
Call of
something
Duty
new today.
came out, the one that's set in the 80s. That was the last motion capture thing I did. I play some characters in that. I even play a Dutch police officer in that. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. So you kind of do like the James Marsters, where I always thought he was from across the pond, and he's American.
Pond. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. I once won an award from England as a Brit living in America, and I never told them that I wasn't. They were like,
You don't like
there's
a
no way
BAFTA
that
award?
Yanks could really do this. I mean, there's no way that they could understand the sort of humor that we do. And I was like, "Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you."
Sounds legit to me.
Award, Tom. Was that BAFTA? BAFTA did that.
It was the Pocket Film Festival, and it was for a show called Invention, where I play an insane inventor who is the same guest on a science show over and over until I drive the host completely mad. And Invention with Brian Forbes was the name, and it won for Best British Internet Series. And I didn't have the heart to tell the 2 guys that were hosting it that I wasn't English, so I had to come up with an entire backstory. I'm sure now I've outed myself.
That's fantastic.
Come on.
If you want to see me as a Brit, yeah, you can search for Invention with Brian Forbes. It was hilarious.
That's so great.
I'd have been like, "Thank you so much. I don't know what else to say other than too late. You can't take it back. See ya."
Not British. I'm actually American. Bye, guys.
This is the revenge for Brits playing Americans all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that's funny because, exactly that right there. The whole thing with Brits playing Americans, and now we have an American playing a Brit. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm giving it back to them. But yeah, I do play a lot of British characters, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I've been really lucky. I make my living doing that. I'm either acting or directing something. I have a new movie that's out right now.
I was just going to say, we could probably segue to a selfless plug for yourself.
Yeah. I've got one movie out that it dropped on Kings of Horror today. We actually did a live chat along with the movie. I play a guy named Albert in this thing called Noise in the Middle, which is kind of a thriller, psychological thriller. And then I have a noir film, a black and white set in the 1940s noir film out called Trouble Is My Business, which is a lot of fun. It has Vernon Wells in it from Commando and Road Warrior. He plays the villain in it.
Wow.
So we had a lot of fun doing that.
That's awesome. I love like modern takes on noir. That's great.
And this one's very much like, it's not a wink. It's not aping it. It's as if you went by and then there was a book that was this story that you're like, hey, I never heard of this one. And you put it in and it is the story as it would have been told in the 40s. So it was a lot of a challenge to kind of be true to the form and like what was good about it? Like, why did people like it? And that was really the mission of the film. It's like, how do you make a film where you tap into what made the attitude of noir last as long as it did?
Right on.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Tom, for the plug.
Yeah, Tom.
Absolutely. And I put the link in the chat. You can watch the entire movie right now for free.
Oh, wow.
Well, don't watch it right now. Wait till we're done.
Well, yeah.
See here.
Like, we out of here. Deuces.
Yeah.
What? Free movie?
It's the end of the show. We're like, all right, I'll see you later.
All right, Tamanj, now you're up next.
So are we on number one, right?
Number two.
Number one.
No, I did number two already.
You did number two? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And my number two's gone. So because that's where you were headed next, I think. Comics.
Yeah. What was your number two again?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
okay.
No,
that's right.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, remember, Tom and I had similar lists.
Yeah. All right. So my number two is the 1932 The Mummy. Yeah, mainly because Boris Karloff and just it's one of the first movies that has sound and it was just so well done, and the makeup they got for Boris Karloff was just creepy as hell.
Yeah,
it's been a number of years since I've watched it, but that was so good.
Yeah, it's very powerful in a theater. In film school, they showed it as we did a horror retrospective, and someone had a 35 print of it. And we watched it on the big screen, and you realize how powerful Karloff's face was. That transformation. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. The lighting in it is beautiful. It's like got a silvery hue to the whole thing. It's amazing.
Well, what's so great about it, too, it's not that stereotypical mummy going around like that. I mean, he's actually a fully developed character, and
very reasonable.
Very reasonable. Yeah. It's done really well. I mean, it's just amazing, that movie came out in the 1930s and what they did with it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's a good pick. That is a really good pick, especially if you want an entry point into like, how did horror start evolving? How did we start using sound and all of that? And starting in the 30s with a look, that became the kind of universal look of films, Bride of Frankenstein and all the classics. That one's a good entry point. Absolutely. All right, so now we're
really, really good too. Most people even kind of consider, Frankenstein and Bride and Frankenstein almost like this, one and the same. It's they're just almost inseparable. I can't.
Yes, I agree with you. Bride of Frankenstein is actually, I think, a superior film to Frankenstein. I think it develops the idea even more, but it has more craft to it and even more camera work. And I think it was James Whale as well. He was kind of exploring more of the perverse and all the strange stuff that he was coming up with. It's an iconic film. Yeah. Yeah, and Boris Karloff, he's just got that menacing presence, like everything that he does, but it's so perfect for the Mummy. Yeah, very much so. He had screen presence. You can see why he had taken off with his career, and he could tap into something, and you're right, presence. He had something in his eyes that he believed it. He meant it when he was doing it, but his monsters were sympathetic. Yeah, and I'm gonna try and find that kind of iconic shot that they have of Boris Karloff, but and that real quick. Let's see here, images. Can I find it? I'll share this one. Nope, that's too small. All right. And let me share it. There we go. That right there, that iconic look, and just even the makeup that they have on his face. Yeah, where he kind of has those like weird wrinkles. It's very creepy. Yeah, he's such a great face. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's a great shot. Okay, so now we're winding down with number one. So we'll have you. Go for it. My number one.
Yes,
The
go for
Thing.
it. Oh, dude, same here.
What was it?
The Thing.
Oh, okay.
You like The Thing?
Oh, dude, I love The Thing. It is my all-time favorite horror movie.
Oh, that movie is so good. In my house, we watch it to relax.
Damn.
Well,
The Thing is a masterpiece, and I'll tell you why. It's Keith David, right? At the end with Kurt Russell, it's the two of them left over, right? At the end.
Yes, it is.
So, spoiler alert. So, that movie is masterful because it's about male friendship, but it's about paranoia. It's about knowing your buddy so well, and then something happens that they're not them anymore, and you lose your identity, and eventually it's about how far could you be pushed as a person to you don't have self-preservation anymore. You don't want to save yourself. You want to burn it all down. And when the two of them are left at the end of the movie, and you can see the breath on one of them and you see no breath on the other one, and they're like, I guess we're just going to wait. And they kind of look at each other and they're waiting. You know they're going to freeze and probably be found, and this whole cycle will start. It's just masterful. The music is masterful. His use of space, the sound. You've got Rob Bottin's Creature, which, again, no CG effects. It's happening there. But it is that literal, primal paranoia of losing your bonds with your friends, losing your bonds with society. It is the perfect, like, at the time, I remember people were walking out of the movie. I convinced my dad to take me to the movie, and he stood up. He was green. Like, he looked like he was on a roller coaster. He just stood up and walked out during that. It was during the dog scene where it's just covered in vomit. The tentacles are going and the heads are coming out. And I sat there going, I love this.
I know. It's so amazing. It's so visceral and well done. And again, this is a movie that's made in 1982 with those practical effects that, to me, they still stand up. I mean, I know there's some stop motion stuff that looks kind of, janky, but for the most part, the thing I thought was interesting, I didn't know about this, but I learned it from Critical Drinker's review, that scene where they're doing the resuscitation and the mouth opens up and bites his arms off, that actor was actually an amputee. So they actually got somebody who was an amputee, and it's like it just totally sells it and
sells it completely.
When that movie came out in theaters, I remember I was going to a mall, and the poster to me is just so iconic with that shadowy figure and the cracked eyes
coming out of the eyes.
And it's just that stuck with me as a kid. And then I finally saw the movie much later after I moved to Texas, and it was just like I was sold, by that movie, and just the
scene where the head crawls by its own tongue, and then the little spider legs come out, and then it scurries away, and the guy goes, "You gotta be kidding!" Or the scene where they're tied on the sofa, and they're doing the blood test. And like the first one, nothing. Second one, nothing. He hits it, and that thing jumps out and he goes, "Will you get me off this fucking couch?" It's just like there are so many great scenes in that. If I made one movie in my life that good, I'd be done. It is a stone cold masterpiece, and I knew it was good because nobody liked it when it first came out.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, it was panned. It didn't make any money, and now it's a masterpiece. And the reason was it was too far ahead of its time. The world was not ready for that movie.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, no, it didn't make a dime. Yeah, but now
it was a huge flop. Yeah.
Kurt Russell, man, he was. I mean, he was fantastic in that movie.
Yeah. Oh,
everything you hit on. I mean, again, going back to isolation and paranoia, and that's the thing I love about that movie is it's another movie that crawls inside of your head and lays eggs.
Yes, it's a good description. It crawls inside your head and lays eggs. That scene where he comes in and he's pissed off and he's covered in snow. We've all felt this way, and he's holding the dynamite and he's like, "If one of you does one more thing to me, I'm gonna blow this whole thing up." I mean, he's so perfect in that film. And even the music is perfect. That minimal music of just the little throbbing heartbeat sound underneath everything. Yeah. It's that movie is designed to drive you up the wall. It's a paranoid fantasy. it is a masterpiece.
Yeah, and then they tried to do the prequel for it, which was just terrible.
Yeah, again, it's one of those where, hey, we can make one that's not as good. Let's make it twice as expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the thing is, if you're going to explain what horror is to someone, you show them The Thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's my pick.
Good deal. All right, Demajane, what do you got?
Okay, so yeah, I've said this before, but I have to say it for mine. This movie I still have not watched fully even as an adult because it scared the shit out of me for real. And that's why this is why I made it my number one, because I still have not completed to watch this movie, and that is The Exorcist. I just can't do it. I just can't. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. I know I said that before, but look, I just
I
movie,
don't blame you. That movie gets inside and just rattles around for a long time.
Yeah, Demajane.
Yeah.
So that's my number one.
I
do have two honorable mentions, but we'll let everybody do their round robin first.
All right, Culture Casino.
Well, I think this is the beginning of the modern horror film. I think that the music at the very beginning of it sets the tone with a hi-hat and piano at 120 beats per minute. Was from the early 70s. Was the first horror film I got to see in a theater, and it features Jamie Lee Curtis. Halloween.
Late 70s.
Yes, Halloween. Yep. I think we're having a common denominator. John Carpenter is right up there.
Yeah.
Late
70s. He is, dude.
70s.
Shut up, Thomas. It's such a great film. I'm sorry, from beginning to end, it's the perfect thing that keeps you jumping. It's the one that introduces the girl is in dire peril, and she warns her friends and they don't listen to her, and it's such an enjoyable film. I loved it. Jamie Lee Curtis was brilliant in it. And of course everything that happens afterwards because of Michael is just beautiful. If you don't appreciate this film, then I can't help you. But this film, unfortunately, you're getting a preview of what I'm going to talk about, in my movie stream in a few days. But this is it for me. Halloween is the film, and each one of my siblings got to see this film because of me. I forced it upon them at probably too young an age. I tortured them with it because I'm the oldest, so everybody was seeing this dang film. We're gonna have Halloween. You're gonna see what Halloween is. And
here's that scared me about that too is the music. I just couldn't.
Yeah, and I think we should say shout out John Carpenter did the music too. He directed it and did the music.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still think it's funny that the mask that Michael Myers wears is basically it's a William Shatner mask, right? Yeah, it's Captain Kirk.
It's a Shatner mask.
What's funny about that?
It's just the fact that.
By the way, Christy is throwing darts like crazy in the chat right now. He's throwing darts.
Yeah, I saw her come in and go, "Hi, toxic males," and I was like, "Oh, well, she's interesting."
I'm such a great actor that I can scare the hell out of you when I'm not even in the movie.
That's true. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
And we have to give a shout out to Donald Pleasance because his description of Michael, where he goes, the black eyes, his silent black eyes, that monologue he has, he sells Michael without Michael even being in the movie very much. You feel his presence from then on. Well, and that's getting somebody who knows craft, one of the old school guys, Donald Pleasance, he throws down in that movie. He means it in that movie.
He is basically everything you need to sell Michael Myers.
Yes.
Because the first thing he says is, "It's gone. It's gone from here. The horror is gone.
The whole thing is gone. Don't you understand?" Yeah.
This is absolutely. Yeah, no, his performance is incredible. And this movie set horror on a completely different path, 100%. Because of Carpenter. In his direction, he took a tiny ass little boat and turned it into multiple millions of dollars. He did something in a way that nobody had done it before. This is the film for me. Again,
Yeah.
it hit at the perfect time of my life, and I tortured everybody I knew with this film going forward many, many years.
Well, hey, no,
great.
I got to agree with both of you. I mean, if we showed the 3 films we've talked about so far, that's the creme de la creme. You show The Exorcist, Halloween, and The Thing to somebody, you know, that's what you put on the spaceship to go, this is who we are on Earth, you know. This is
Yeah,
horror.
I think they might not come back here. They're like, oh, you know, let's not go to Earth.
That's right. Don't go to Earth.
Well, the funny thing too is I hate remakes. I notoriously hate remakes, and my favorite horror movie is a remake.
Yeah. But you know what I excuse it on? We had this conversation, Tom and I actually had this on Midnight Edge. That is not technically a remake of the movie. It is from Who Goes There, the original book. It's actually closer to the book. So it's almost an alt universe first make of the source material. It's not really a remake of the movie because there's really no elements of the movie that kind of map across, but a lot of the book is in there. You know, but yeah, I don't typically like remakes either, but in that case, he owned that movie. Ugh.
Yeah, the reason why I bring it up because I want to ask what is everyone's thoughts on Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween?
Rob's a good musician. I don't know.
Yeah,
It doesn't have the same effect.
Not
man.
really.
That's-
Not
that's
really.
the thing. I think it's so funny. Rob Zombie being really into horror, and I can't stand his movies. It's like House of a Thousand Corpses was billed as this like insane movie because nobody wanted to carry it, and I was like, this is fucking pedestrian.
If you want to understand what's wrong with it,
yeah,
there's a great documentary out there that somebody did, YouTube channel. I can't think of the name of it, but all you got to type in is how Rob Zombie destroyed Halloween, and I think it'll come up. And no, it makes a really good case for why Rob Zombie was the wrong choice to make Halloween, because this guy said he hates remakes and there's no reason to make a remake unless there's something wrong with the film. Right. So then this guy basically went around saying, okay, so is this guy really saying he didn't technically like Halloween when it come out? And he goes through a shit ton of his interviews and starts to pick out little bits and pieces where he says, oh yeah, I approved on this, or I didn't think this worked in the original Halloween, questioning whether or not he's even really that much of a Halloween fan.
Yeah.
Going to my point was, if anybody was going to remake Halloween, it shouldn't have been him. And if anything, Rob Zombie should have done the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because that's really what he probably wanted to do. And he just was butthurt that he wasn't the guy.
That's basically House of a Thousand Corpses. It's kind
exactly
of
my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Rob had the wherewithal as a filmmaker to figure out, because what Carpenter's doing is a really very subtle thing. You know, that his hand is all over that movie. Like that movie is a classic because Carpenter made it, not that it, was, anybody could have made it. And the problem with somebody like, Rob Zombie, even if he was a fan, you can be a fan of something and still not be good at doing it. You can appreciate something, but not have the sensitivity to do it, not have the inherent kind of feel for it. And the problem is, it's almost that sledgehammer approach. Whenever I watch it, it feels like he's sledgehammering me, or it's very mediocre, and it's almost like a shadow representation of what somebody. It's like playing telephone, and by the time it gets around to you, then it's a Rob Zombie film. It's like it's diluted. It's his impression of what's good, but without knowing what's good.
Well, and I think his second film really speaks to the whole thing, because in his interview for the second film, he's like, yeah, at least in this time, I didn't feel like I was beholden to anything John Carpenter did, and I could make a Rob Zombie film. And it's like, okay,
well, then make
you
a Rob
don't
Zombie
understand what, So in other words, you totally don't understand what you're doing here. You just basically came in and shat all over John Carpenter for no other reason than because you wanted to do it. That was
he wanted to make it better.
Yeah, go make your own movie. You don't need to
because any true fan,
Yeah.
And as much as I didn't care for Halloween 2018, that's what a true fan would have done. They would have come in and said, okay, how can I extend from the original, or do a new sequel, or something that doesn't shit on the original,
right?
but yet pays homage or does something different or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, why would you? No one wants to see their work shit on, and no one that's a fan of it wants to go and go, hey, I wonder how they destroy it. It's just he was a weird choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just saw like 4 Star Wars films like that. But anyway,
We should have seen it coming from Rob Zombie.
Yeah, no, look, it's look, I'm not going to be as hard on House of a Thousand Corpses as comics was, because I thought it was okay.
No, House is okay, and Devil's Rejects is a great fucking horror movie.
Yes,
I haven't seen Devil's Rejects. And the only reason why I haven't seen it is because I didn't like the first one.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
It's way better.
It's pretty good. But
I have to admit, though, I like Captain Spaulding as a character.
Isn't that the one with the guy with the fried chicken?
He's the clown. Yeah, he's the clown.
Demanjana, your mic is way down, or you're coming through your mic.
There you are. I have my mic over there. Sorry, I'm over here talking. I'm getting comfortable, and I have my mic over here. So no, I was gonna say that's the clown guy, like that guy.
I think that's them. Yeah.
my brothers was just telling me about that the other day. Like he said, you ain't got to go to hell. This is hell. This is that. That's the.
And
my brothers love that movie.
He says, "I got to give props for props are due. Devil's Rejects is a very good horror film." End of story. Okay.
And I have to say something to the chat, because according to Christy, you could not be more wrong about Halloween 3. You just have to understand that Halloween 3 isn't a sequel to Halloween 2.
No, it's like it's its own thing, man. Season of the Witch is
it's
fantastically terrible.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I do too, man. It's a guilty pleasure for sure.
Shut it off. Stop
All right.
it.
Before we get to you, Thomas, I need to get these super chats before they disappear. So we have a a pooper sticker.
A super pooper.
Super pooper. That's what we call the super chat.
Been dive bombing the chat for a while.
Yeah. She also sends a very vaginal peach for $1.49. And it's like, it's YouTube, man. Anyway.
I don't know about underrated.
What's that?
Yeah, I think it's a decent film.
Okay, so Corey B for $4.99. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Most underrated classic monster movie. Thoughts?
I would argue I don't think it's underrated, because even though it was made
that is a terrific movie. Actually.
It's terrific. Yeah, I was gonna say, and even though it was made like 20 years out from the other Universal horror films for the most part, he is still considered one of the Universal monsters. So I don't think he's underrated.
No, I think it's pretty good.
Yep. Even though he's the Joe Pescopo.
And have you ever seen it in the original 3D?
Yeah.
It was a 3D film too. I've seen it in 3D. It's pretty amazing use of 3D back then.
Yeah, the Blu-ray has the 3D version on it if you have a 3D TV. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta pull it out. Cool. Yeah, I gotta order that.
3D was really spooky. Yeah, it was really, really interesting.
And Clint Eastwood, I think, is in the third one, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he is. He plays like a scientist, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like in a bit part. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's great.
What were you gonna say, Culture, or did you say it?
Oh no, I just said I need to order the Blu-ray then.
Oh, okay.
3D on it, because I'd like to see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those weird people that have a couple 3D TVs in the house. So
You're like
worth
me
a look. Well. It's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, unfortunately, 3D doesn't work for me.
It's buried in the special features, but it is.
I can't do 3D either. My stigmatism, I can't see.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. If you have that, it doesn't. But it's notable of its use of 3D was really rare for back then, especially at that budget. But the movie holds up really well. It's actually a good representation of 50s horror.
And also just the costume for the creature is great.
Actually really good.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, and better than some that we're getting out of today. So
yeah,
what's that?
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to tell Christy that Clint Howard is an underappreciated national treasure. So stop it. Stop it.
You go ahead and get high with Clint Howard and not think he's an amazing man for 4 hours and have dinner with him. He's awesome.
All right. Toxic Man Flu for $1.49, who sends a hot dog super sticker.
Because he has zero fucks to give. That's why.
Let's see. We also have Dolified with another super sticker. It is a cup of coffee, or a thing with a cup of coffee doing that. And
it's a pear.
It's what?
I think it's a pear.
Is it a pear?
I think so.
It kind of looks like a pear, now that you mention it. Yeah. And Toxic Man Flu for $5. Culture's favorite horror film, Candy Children of the Corn. or wouldn't that be Children of the Candy
Corn?
Yeah,
Children of the Candy Corn I would watch.
Also, no.
Didn't you say we found someone had just made
a remake of Candy of the Corn during the pandemic?
Hey, I've seen this photo.
We need to make that.
Absolutely. Clint Howard. I said Clint Eastwood according to Christy, but yes, Clint Howard is awesome. So there you go.
Howard. Yeah, they often get confused, Clint Howard and Clint Eastwood.
Oh yes, they are easily. They look at they're identical twins.
Yeah.
It's like
Hey,
looking
Clint.
in a mirror.
Hey, Clint, you want to go get some supper? Sure, I gotta eat sometime. Hey, Clint, you want to go get high? Hell yeah, I got a card.
All right, so Tom, we know your number one's Jaws.
Yeah,
but
so I think we need to talk about real quick that didn't come up of all the movies we've talked about. Even though we just did mention it, but we should probably talk about it a little bit. You can't have horror talk without Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's true.
Oh yeah,
very
absolutely.
true.
The Tobe Hooper classic made on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
The grindhouse feel of that film is still terrifying. The soundtrack to it with just the noise of the camera and shit, and just the way that film just gets to you.
Yeah.
It just gets to you. It is. Speaking of cannibals, like you guys brought up, earlier, it's just like, oh God, they're talking about a family of cannibals there.
Yeah, that is definitely one of those movies my parents wouldn't let me watch when I was younger.
Yeah. It's a fever dream. It is a fever dream.
Just so we clear, all these movies I've seen, my mother was not having it.
Yeah, Mom was like, no.
Super Christian religious. Nah, none of this is. I had to sneak and see these with either my big cousins or go by myself somewhere. But none of I was not seeing any.
She wasn't going to give you The Exorcist. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no Exorcist watching in my mom's house. It's not happening.
That's true. Most mom houses. Yeah.
But I mean, culture brought up Halloween being like the prototype slasher film, which is sort of true.
Yes.
But Leatherface was there first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you took the gruesomeness of Texas Chainsaw mixed with the suspense and the idea and setup of Halloween, and that's where we got the slasher film today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You're right. It's a hybrid.
It's definitely a movie I need to go back and rewatch because it's been such a long time since I've seen it.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. I actually, because it was filmed in Texas, one of my teachers, he was actually on set when they did it. And it was pretty funny. He did committed one of the most cardinal sins of filmmaking. He went over and picked up a cup off the table. And the guy was like, put it back exactly where you found it.
Hot set. You got a hot set.
Yeah.
Don't start moving stuff around. That drives me.
Well, at least they didn't have a Starbucks cup on the table. So I'm just saying.
That's Game of Thrones to me.
But yeah, there's so many.
That's a good pick. Yeah, that was a seminal film. It definitely, it's scrappy and it feels raw like a fever dream. And I think the nature of it carried into so many movies that their lineage can be traced back to that film. So yeah, and it had an offbeat kind of weird energy to it. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of like the Godfather of horror. Was that Tom?
So Christy's just pissed I didn't pick Tremors. She's out there talking some schmack.
All right. Latino Slam for $1.49 super sticker, and it is a very phallic unicorn. And we also have another super sticker from Christy for $2,
hearts,
which is a fox or a dog pooping hearts.
And thank you for that.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that.
Oh, this is great.
Yes. Texas,
oh my goodness.
Texas Campbell death row inmate is denied his demand for a human steak as his last meal.
So as I pointed out on Justin Proper's stream, this man is a living, breathing, real life Ferengi.
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
those ears. Wow. Human flesh, the other
Wow.
white meat.
Yeah, seriously.
The other white meat.
Funnily enough, even though
That guy is scary.
Yeah, seriously, man. If I saw this guy walking down the street, I would definitely
Yeah,
cross
looks like something. It looks like something.
he kind of looks like Bill Moseley's character in the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I mean, that is not a good look.
No. Only in Texas, folks. Only in
I
Texas.
came here to make a request. Any guy to Vita?
Can you get,
I love
you can
Texas
stand over here,
Chainsaw too. Oh shit, that is talk about a Gonzo fucking movie, man.
Yeah. Wasn't like the third one where they're making chili out of people?
Oh, that's the second one.
Is that that's the second one? Okay.
He wins the chili contest. Yeah,
Yeah.
every year.
What's your secret? Oh god.
Inbreeding. Yeah.
All
One
right.
guy, he takes a bite or whatever, and I think it's like a ring or something like in there. Oh, it's just a peppercorn. It's just a peppercorn.
All right, we've been going for 2.5 hours. I know that
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about digital media, but it's 1:00.
We can
And-
save it for next week.
One
I gotta
We'll-
go
o'clock.
we'll
fast.
save it
It's
for
two,
next
it's
time.
two over here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, of course, man. You live in the future. That's why.
You're in the future.
Hey,
It
real
was a
quick, since
pleasure
before
talking
we
movies
go,
with you guys.
before we
Absolutely,
go,
man. I'm glad that that Thomas brought you on. It was
Thank you.
fantastic.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All
Before
of you.
we go, I
Great
have my
conversation.
two honorable mentions, which is
Okay.
Go for it.
Blair Witch Project, the first one.
Oh,
Because when I saw it, especially when I saw it in the theater, that's before we really knew. Everybody's like, "Was this real? Was this real?" Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what kind of got us. And
That
then
was
of
the
course,
first found footage. Yeah.
yeah,
found-
yeah,
Yeah.
and then my other honorable mention is the Lost Boys. So
okay.
Oh yeah, Lost
You
Boys.
made up
That's-
for it with that one, Dimaj and I, because I was going to say, look,
Yeah.
Scream damaged horror, but Blair Witch killed it.
Well, what
For
the
many
thing with Blair
years.
Witch though? It's
but I'm
like,
saying the first one when you didn't know, like I didn't know, like
Oh, I'll
yeah,
give them credit for what they did, but
so I'm
Yeah,
just
their
saying.
marketing was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. The movie itself was garbage. Actually, I wouldn't even go that far. If you want to see a very visceral movie about human emotion, it is a great movie because it definitely wears you down. I found it to be boring, but the marketing amount around it was amazing. The first, found footage film,
Yep.
the viral marketing that they did, the fact that the mythology I found to be more interesting than the film.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
the
it did,
mythology they
according to
built around
Christy.
it was amazing, which is what, to your point, where you're sitting there thinking, is this real? I mean, you're right.
That's what got me. It was like obviously once you got through, you said, okay, this is kind of, especially part when you have and the thing with her nose dripping and everything. And
Yeah.
of course, they made fun of her in the Scary Movie and all that stuff like that. Like a Scary Movie had like snot dropping all of that. Like, yeah, I get that, but like when you first like you get into the hype of everything, you're like, is this real?
Yeah.
And the part that actually freaked me out is the end when he was like in the corner. That
part,
kind of freaked me out.
I like that. That was probably
That part.
the last 5 minutes of the film was the most entertaining.
oh, it was the
Yeah.
best marketed horror film of all time.
Oh,
Hands
absolutely.
down. Like there's no better way in it. I was going to say this about the whole, like, they say Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on real events. Well, one thing people don't realize, and I've gotten into arguments with people about this shit, because they're like, "Oh no, the Sawyer family is real." And blah, blah, blah.
No, it's not. It was based off of Ed Gein.
It's like, but no, like the whole thing with the Blair Witch Project, they played up that this is all true shit to the hilt, to where the poor actors who were in that movie couldn't get a part for
Because they thought they were dead.
they were fucking
I
dead.
thought-
They're like, how can you be auditioning? You're dead.
Yeah.
They had to have the whole cast come out, and I think it was on either Leno or Letterman to be like, "No, we're alive. We're really alive. It wasn't real." It was like,
Yeah.
and the video came out or whatever. But yeah,
Well, Sci-Fi, they also did this great,
yeah, that didn't help.
fake documentary about it. Yeah, and you had like
The marketing on it was textbook. It was really
Yeah.
well marketed. Yeah.
yeah.
But the part two
No.
was trash. The part two
But
was
no, like
absolute
what I
trash.
mean
Yeah,
by
it was.
horror is like for years it was all found footage shit.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, the highest grossing horror film of all time was like Paranormal Activity, I think, until Halloween came out.
Mhm.
So it's like, to me, that's like, no. If anything, Exorcist should be like the number one horror film of all time, which it was until I think
Until
Freddy
found
versus
footage.
Jason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, well, then of course before that was that, but then Freddy versus Jason came in and finally took that away from him again. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Crazy.
So no, I was wrong because I thought that came out first, but I'm like, no, reverse it. Yeah. So like it was just ugh. But even Freddy versus Jason was kind of the end of an era. Like that was the capper of it all.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. Because then,
But
we
in
got
retrospect, you realize that you can see the ends of cycles when you get a little distance from it. You're like, right, that kind of closed out that thought or that idea, and we didn't revisit it. It kind of ended that idea, and we move on.
Well, and when they did revisit it, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, was it Jason X?
Well, no, that's when they remade them after that because it was only
they started doing
years.
remakes.
It was only a couple of years after that they did Texas Chainsaw, and then 2009 they did Friday the 13th, and then 2010 was Nightmare on Elm Street, and that pretty much killed it because Nightmare on Elm Street was so badly received that, and rightfully so, it was a fucking shit movie. Awesome. Just a horrible, horrible fucking movie.
Christy's just throwing mad darts at you, bro. Holy smokes! Like she got the AK, like shots fired, shots fired, shots fired.
Yeah, what did you do to her?
She's not having a bad night or something. Why is she pissed that we didn't invite her in on this? Is that what it is?
Probably.
Is she taking it out on me?
No,
it's not my show.
Because we're hating on found footage movies.
No. She's been after me all night long.
No, wait. I know what it is. It's because we didn't mention Muriel's wedding.
No, there's
that landed not at all. It's the people who watch her movies
she's
don't
drunk.
get that.
Are you drunk, Christy?
Probably. You want to get in my lap? Is that what your deal is? Come here. My dog is.
She's drinking that fireball.
Come on.
That fireball.
No. All right, fine.
No.
But yeah,
it was a pleasure, guys.
I guess you guys like the Lost Boys, but I guess we gotta roll anyway.
Yeah. Let's do the outros real quick. So, Tom, is there anything you want to plug?
Please check out my latest film. It's called Noise in the Middle. I play Albert in it. Trouble is My Business, which is a film noir. And if you want to check out some more of my stuff, you can check out my YouTube channel here. I've got trailers for a lot of my material, or just search Tom Conkle, see what comes up, and you can laugh at me or with me. Either way.
Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad that Thomas wasn't able to invite you. And
thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, no problem, man. Like I try to get as many good people on streams as I can,
Absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Yeah, likewise,
Same here, man. Nice meeting you.
All right, take care.
Learn something new today, too.
Bye-bye.
All right, Damaj and I, let's get you up here.
All right, everybody. How you guys doing? It's Damaj and I.
Put your arm down, man. Put your arm down.
What I do? Oh.
The TV.
My fault. I was going to put it down in a minute. But
I was screwing you, man. Go ahead.
Yes, it's DMAJINI, Damaj and I. You come to my channel. I do videos Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. And on Tuesdays, The Dark Council. Saturdays, Spellbroken Live. And Sundays is live with my brother Fatal J, Keepers of the Force. That's basically it. What do we got here? I believe Keepers of the Dark Council will be on Fatal J's channel, I believe, this week. And also on Fatal J's channel is Keepers of the Force. And tomorrow I have something very special for y'all. Make sure you keep an eye on my YouTube channel, because it's going to be something great. So have a great day. And enjoy my screensavers too. I do this for you.
Yeah.
The people.
All right. Next up, we will do Tom.
Well, you can find me on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark, and hanging out with funny people like these here on these streams and High Council and all kinds of other places.
And last but not least,
I like that stripe.
Thank you. And subscribe to Steve Kenobi.
Yes, subscribe to Steve. And last but not least, we have Culture Casino.
I'm Culture Casino. I have a YouTube channel. Most of you are subscribed. If you're not, please subscribe. I actually make some good content. I look at pop culture and entertainment news from the business side most of the time. Sometimes I just rant about really dumb stuff. There's plenty of it out there in the world nowadays. I actually don't lack for any material, by the way. And I get to hang out with great people like Tom on a live stream every week or 2 or 3. He's amazing.
Well, we do our Tuesday shows. Yes, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't care. Steve Cody needs your subscriptions, guys. We have to get him to 450 so we get another top 5 video. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go to his channel and watch his top 5 videos, and you can subscribe right away. Anyway, thank you so very much. We would not be here without all of you in the chat. We had an incredible panel tonight. I am so privileged to be here with everybody that's here. And if you're not subscribed, gentlemen, and if you haven't helped the Maj and I get his viewing hours for his monetization, please help. Please help. Help me. Help you. Anyway, have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, man. You're the best.
Man, I don't know what it is with your connection, but it's been pretty,
it was fine earlier.
janky.
I don't know what the fuck it is now. Somebody
It's
doing
called-
something
it's called my
uplinking?
internet. No, I have no. There is nobody using my pipe right now, and that's shit. Anyway, there's nobody
Phrasing.
using my stream right now. Right, it's right now. I should be getting 30 megabits up per second. So I freaking don't know what's going on. Very unhappy.
Might need to
I blame
reset your
Dimash.
router or something, or modem. I don't know.
No. That's not it. It is my internet company doing dumb stuff at night. That's all it is. I quit. I'm gone.
That sucks. All right, folks. Thanks, Tom, for bringing in the special guest. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
No problem.
It was fun talking, movies rather than the other crap we talk about.
I don't
on
feel
Thursday.
like I'm ready to die.
Yeah, I know. I think
Yeah.
all of us feel like we're leaving the stream happy for a change, rather than go,
Yeah.
the world sucks.
I want to go watch some horror movies.
Yeah, but you know what? Halloween is just around the corner. Go out, watch your favorite horror movies. Don't forget, tomorrow night is Friday Night Tights, where we're gonna have Ethan Van Sciver on, and apparently a costume contest. So my costume is very low tier. Just warning you guys.
It's crazy. Oh, I know she's asleep right now, but big shout out to my niece. She's 12 years old today.
Well, happy birthday
happy
to
birthday.
niece
Happy
Jamajanai.
birthday. Yeah.
She's day before Halloween. My mom, of course, like I told you, my mom's super religious. Like she's like, when my sister was pregnant, she's like, I hope she doesn't have the baby on Halloween. My mom was like, oh. I'm like, what's wrong, Mom? She's like, whatever. I was like, but yeah, big shouts to my little niece. She's 12. She's one more year, she'll be a teenager.
You know what? I forgot to do something. Wait, I forgot to promote my live stream tomorrow at midday for most people called the Pre-Flight. Check my channel or Twitter, and it'll go up there. I actually have to post it before I go to bed. So anyway, I try to preview what I think comics and the boys are going to talk about tonight, and everybody else throughout the weekend. So sometimes I'm pretty good. I think I hit most of the subjects last week. I'm going to keep on it. I'm getting better.
All right, so we have a few more comments strolling in before we close out. Talk to Manflu for $2. I needed this. Thank you all. And Cleveland says comics will dye his beard and call it a day. Yeah, not gonna be that low tier. I mean, it is definitely minimal effort, but I think it's gonna be kind of funny. So anyway, all right, folks, I'll catch you next time.
Yeah, have a great one.